Hello and welcome to episode 99 of On the Bench, the podcast for scale modelers by scale modelers, all about scale models. And we have got a cracker of an episode for you, but fair warning everybody, this one has some R-rated language in it. So if you have any young ones around, you might want to consider perhaps listening to it with your headphones on or at another time, because we have a cracker of an interview with Al Murray. This episode is being brought to you through the generous support of our Patreon supporters, who, without their help, we could not bring you this show. If you'd like to help support the show, you can do so by going to www.patreon.com/onthebench and contribute any amount from $1 per month upwards. The Scale Modeler Supply. Certified Australian made, Scale Model supplies a detailed range of premium acrylic paints that have been specifically developed to cater to the scale modeler. Designed to be used straight from the bottle, SMS paints have taken all the guesswork out of airbrushing. Simply shake the durable glass bottle and pour and spray for a fast drying and extremely durable result. The ever-growing range of SMS paints will suit all types of model builders, be it military, train, car, science fiction or Gunpla. SMS premium acrylic lacquer paints will have a colour to suit you. The Scale Modeler is also your one-stop shop for all your weathering, brushes, masking, tools and accessory needs. SMS paint tools and accessories are available either directly from their website, www.scalemodeler.com.au, or through stockists across Australia, New Zealand, Singapore and the US. And as a special bonus exclusive to our On The Bench listeners, you will get 10% off by using the promo code OTB when ordering direct from www.scalemodeler.com.au. So go now. Go to scalemodeler.com.au. We know you won't be disappointed. And hello and welcome to the show. And in the studio, I've got Ian.
G'day, Dave. G'day, listeners.
And of course, Julian.
Morning.
We have a special guest in the studio who's joined us for this episode. It is Robert.
Hello, everyone. Not so sure I'm that special, but here I am.
Well,
Special to us.
Special to us, yes. So what have you all been up to since last episode? I'll start with you, Ian. What have you been doing?
Well, the Marauder. I got the mechanical pencil out
Ooh.
and drew 3 lines and then got sidetracked. And that was it. So it's going to take a while to actually get all the panel lines drawn on that thing, and then I'll have to scribe and then do all my rivets. I don't know if I mentioned I bought it, because the Marauder comes with flush and dome rivets.
Yeah.
Just to make it interesting. Like, it's not just consistent of one type of rivet. No, there's 2 types of rivets on a Marauder. So I've had to buy the Archer domed rivet transfers.
Yep.
So, which I'll be applying at a later stage, because I don't want to, once I've done on my standard rivets, then I can start working on the interior, and I don't want to run the risk of chipping or break them off. So once the interior and everything's buttoned up and finished, then I can put those last dome rivets on, and then I can start me painting and weathering, but that's probably months down the track.
Very cool. Julian?
I've been working on the Mini Art, what's it, FL282, the little Calibri late war Nazi chopper.
The Musaru Cup.
Yes, the Musaru Cup build.
which you're building against Stuart from Scale Model Podcast.
Yep.
And thanks to London IPMS for the kit. And you've actually brought in what you've done so far in the studio, and it's looking mighty fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks nice now. It had some issues.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a tube frame construction.
Yeah.
Right, and some of the parts were broken, some of them were bent and like sort of mismolded. But I got there in the end. There was some bending of bits and...
Yeah, it's sitting on the table here, and I'm looking at it, and all I'm thinking to myself is, where's Bruce Spence and a heap of snakes?
As
Robert's going, what's he talking about?
Yeah, I do not get that reference
Mad
at
Max
all.
2.
Mad Max
okay,
2,
right.
yes.
He's got the gyrocopter and he throws the snakes down on Humongous and the rest of his posse.
Oh, did you see he died the other day?
Oh, did he?
The guy out of the latest Fury Road.
Yes. When he
Morton
played Humongous originally and
Yes.
Morton
played
Joe.
Morton Joe, yes.
Yeah.
And, another big name that passed away this week too,
Yeah,
General Chuck
absolutely.
Yeager.
Yes, that's right, yes. One of my heroes. I've read his book. His book's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
He paints himself in, well, as you would if you're doing an autobiography, you sort of paint yourself in the best sort of light. But geez, you can't take away from what he achieved.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
You know, fighter pilot in World War II.
First man to officially break the sound
Yep.
barrier, even though my dad would contest it. Because my dad always said during the war he remembers hearing a Stuka break the sound barrier, but it didn't pull out.
That's what the boom was.
Yeah, you've got to survive.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, apparently Stuka did not pull out of its dive.
No, and then of course he went on to fight in the Vietnam War as well. So yeah, it's a sad loss to the aviation. You know.
Yeah, well, that group of people is getting smaller and smaller, unfortunately.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I was talking to somebody. We're the generation that is watching the end of the World War I generation, the World War II generation,
And we'll see the end of Vietnam and Korea.
the Korea generation as well. Yeah. So on our watch, 4 great generations sort of passed before us. It's sort of a bit sobering, isn't it?
You know what'll be even worse?
What's
is
that?
when we go.
Yes. If we won't care, we'll be dead.
True. Very true.
So Julian, back to you. Have you decided on the scheme you're going to do for this build?
Probably going to do the German scheme.
Right.
Initially, I didn't want to, but like the Russian version has like these. I can only assume that they're like counterweights or something. There's like these 2 long poles that stick out the front with things on them.
I think they're GoPro mountings.
Right.
GoPro mountings.
I mean, like they're basically like 2 long sticks with what look like sausages on the end.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I can only imagine they're counterweights because it's too tail heavy or something.
Well, when you look at the kit, it does look like it'd be slightly tail heavy, since there's nothing in the front except for the pilot.
Remember,
and a
it's
bit of
just
tube.
fabric.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to remember that that's a huge tail. This is a chopper that doesn't have like a rear rotor like modern choppers do. It's got 2 separate main rotors, and the only way to turn the thing is with this huge rudder. And you look at the weight distribution, the engine and the sort of transmission that goes off to the 2 rotors, they're almost on the center line.
Yeah.
So you know, it baffles me like how this thing is like balanced. I'm guessing the pilot actually makes up a huge chunk of the weight.
It'd be like the Tiger Cat. Because you with a Tiger Cat, an unfueled F7F Tiger Cat without a pilot sitting in it will automatically sit on its tail.
This thing's got a little like metal guard type thing on the bottom of the tail to stop it from because they expect it to hit the ground.
Yeah.
At some time, you know. So I'm guessing that's why the Russians put little extra weights on it just to keep it a bit nose.
Stop bending it.
Yeah. So oh well, maybe they found it was actually unbalanced and they had to fix it.
Yeah, could be.
In any case, so I'll be doing the German one, so I don't have things to break off it.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
Not to mention, after talking to Robert, turns out like we were sort of talking about it a bit, and I didn't know that these things were actually used in service.
Ah, what, like spotters?
Yeah, very briefly.
Artillery spotters, yeah.
Yep. Oh, beats the old way of just using a balloon.
Yeah, so I'll take the actual in service scheme over the experimental sort of scheme, even if it's captured one, whatever. Yeah. So there's a bit of like it's typical Mini-R, and like I got stuck into it like after our last episode. I got stuck into it almost immediately, and I got a lot done, and then I sort of left it for a little while, and then did a lot last night and the night before that, and mostly that's because there's this really complicated like linkage on the back of the transmission type thing. where it includes where you basically have like a couple like linkages with photo etched parts that are brackets holding it all together, and it's a pain in the ass.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, there's like 6 bits of photo etch in there and 2 very, very tiny pieces of plastic, and one of them was mismolded so that it's supposed to look like, like a classic capital letter I.
Yeah.
Where sort of like, like a bone shape, He's got 2 things on either end. It's supposed to be like that, but instead it's sort of like shifted over on one end so that
so it's more rhomboid.
Yeah, and that really complicated things because I'm trying to bend this really tiny, really thin piece of plastic that it doesn't really want to.
No.
And the whole thing was practically white with stress marks. And then I just just glued it in there and it's like, okay, it's done.
Yeah.
I don't need to touch it.
Don't touch it anymore. Just leave it there.
Mini art, why do you have to overcomplicate things?
Well, it's a pity because, because the mini art kits are so good, but you say the overcomplication of the parts count, it really, Look, it's frustrating.
The thing is, right, like this is a complex subject, so you need a certain degree of complication. It's just a shame that it was Mini Art who tackled it instead of someone with a bit more finesse and engineering expertise.
Bronco.
Yeah.
Or Kitty Hawk.
Yeah. The thing is, like I said, it's a complicated subject, and someone who is willing to do that is it has balls.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's not a well-known subject either.
Given Mini Art's level of ability to get their plastic to be shaped the way they design it to look, I think that's better. I think they should just stick to tanks.
Mm. Is it a soft plastic?
It's kind of soft. It's not hard like Tamiya plastic is, where you can polish it up. It doesn't really like.
So it's
that
like
sort
a
of
mixture
thing.
between, like a halfway between Tamiya and Airfix.
Yeah, it's hard. Like how like with Tamiya plastic, like you can bend it to quite a high degree before things break.
Mm-hmm.
But when they break
cleanly.
Clean. You know, this isn't like that. It's like fibrous breakage.
Oh, so you
almost.
Like, yeah. I know what you mean. So you get like a fuzzy edges and.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's. I don't expect nice quality plastic to come out of like Eastern Europe. So there is that, and that's what they got to work with.
But Eastern Europe, doesn't Edward come from Eastern Europe?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's true.
Their plastic's really nice.
I'm guessing the good plastic stays in the Czech Republic and doesn't get across the border to Russia.
Just leave it to the Bohemians.
Robert, what have you been building lately?
I've been building a Komsomolets Russian armoured tractor. It's a little tiny baby thing, and I've been dealing with all the little tiny tracks. It's sort of the size of a 72nd scale tank, and that's been fun. And also I added some extra difficulty myself because I was looking at the kit and I thought,
it's not quite difficult enough.
But don't think that's not quite right. And they've moulded all the visors, the vision visors, onto the plastic. They're not opening separate parts. And I thought, I don't think the relief is high enough. So I had to cut them all out and then replace the plastic.
Yep.
And then I've got to sand them back to the thickness that I think they should be.
They should be, yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't look quite right.
Yeah.
And I'm also changing the version slightly.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm quite particular about those vision sort of things on a lot of armoured vehicles. I'm not a big fan of like when they're just sort of moulded onto the hull. Like I'd actually prefer it to be clear plastic if possible.
Yeah.
Because you sort of see it as like the eyes, right? And you don't want to gloss over what little details there are on a armored vehicle.
Yes. Very true. That's what you don't want to do.
Yeah. It's like when they've got oversimplified tools and things.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good look.
We all know about that, yes. But what about you, Dave?
Oh, I'm building a launch gantry for a V2. Now, it came with the...
Is that the mobile launch gantry? Or
the mobile launch gantry. Yep. It came with the little truck and another V2. But the V2, I lost a part. It went pinging off into the nether regions, and there's no way I can rebuild another one because it's so small and it's kind of dome-shaped and it's got a funny shape to it. So I'd struggle to replicate that by doing it myself. So I don't know what I'm going to do there.
Buy another kit.
Well, yeah, you can buy another kit.
Is it just like one piece? Is it? It's just like a a dome-shaped
it's one piece, but it's not critical. But if it's not there, I'll have to turn the kit around so you can't see it. The bit's missing, if you sort of get what I mean.
I'll have to see later.
Yeah,
put a tarp on it.
No, you can't put a tarp because I want it sitting on the ready to launch, and so it's going to be.
How big is it? This part?
About that big.
to our listeners, they're just going, well, that's not going to help us.
What 3 to 5 mil?
No, smaller. Yeah, about
it's gone.
Yeah, about 1 mil or something. And I've had a good look around, and I can't see anywhere. It's one of the very few parts that have lost.
So,
that haven't been able
is
to
it
find.
like a solid dome?
No, it's sort of like a half dome, and it covers an exhaust port or something on the rocket. So, yeah.
But is it like a solid piece, or is it just like a sheet?
No, it's like a sheet type thing set up.
I was trying to think of a way of doing it.
Yeah, I'll have to have a think about that. So
there should be a way of doing it anyway.
Yeah. So that's sort of been there, and I've sort of been slowly moving forward on my Apollo lunar module, sort of making very slow progress on that. That's about it, really. I've been pretty busy with work and other stuff, so I haven't had much of a opportunity.
Near the end of the year, we're all pretty flat out.
Oh yeah, coming up to Christmas, so we're all absolutely flat out at the moment.
Too true.
Crazy times.
Dave, now you're building rockets. Are you interested in the new ones like the SpaceX type rockets?
If I can get them in 1/72 scale, because I'm a constant scale builder, yes,
Right, okay.
yes. Now I know there are a few guys out there who have 3D printed the Dragon capsule as an example, and they look fantastic. So I'd have to go to see somebody who's doing that and selling them, but I haven't found the actual seller yet. These guys are just doing it for themselves at the moment. So, it's just a bit of a kick on one at the moment.
Yeah.
And it was sort of started off when I built that Horizon Models Mercury rocket, and from there I've just gone boom, 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 boom. I'm loving it. It's good fun. But I've got so many other kits in my stash I need to get back to. So
we've all got that problem, Dave.
Oh, I do.
And we all still got bits we're looking for and buying. And
I know it.
Shocking.
We've got quite a bit of listener mail, so how about we sort of jump into that, shall we? First of all, Roger Foss from, I think it's Chico, California, writes in, "G'day, gents. Referencing the jest one of or more of you made regarding taking a drink whenever Julian said, good oldie times."
Old-timey.
Old-timey, that's right. Have a look at Will Patterson's builds for his Edward Mustang and his Edward F86. I did, and I came away with the notion one could get really sloppy and drunk over the course of even a single video for the number of times Will says, "It is what it is."
Everyone says that a lot.
He's a great bloke, Will.
Oh, absolutely. So thanks a lot for that, Roger. Let's have a look now. Sorry, I'm just trying to get through the whole list here for me to.
So Dave's still looking.
Yeah, okay. Here, no, this is a good one. This is from Mark Casiglia, who writes in. Sorry about the butchering your pronunciation there, Mark. Hi, Dave. Just thought I'd reach out and in regards to the discussion that he picked up on our other podcast regarding Quinta Studios 3D decals. Ian seemed to be adamant that using those would be like cheating, and in fairness to him, I've heard the same opinion from many others on Facebook modelling groups. I don't understand that point of view at all. I figure that if you can manually paint aircraft instrument panel to the same accuracy as a 3D decals, then maybe you could view it as a lazy shortcut. But you can't, and that's assuming the moulded detail even before you start painting, is anything as good as what you get from the 3D decals. So where does the point of cheating begin anyway? Ultimately, you will buy a model kit which is fully formed contours, panel lines and rivets, and that isn't really cheating anyway. You're putting together something that's already done for you, so unless you've scratch built it from the very beginning. So there you go. Food for thought, Mark.
Valid point.
It is a valid point.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
I mean, when photo etch came in, the old times go, oh, you can't use it. That's not modelling anymore using photo etch. It's revolutionised certainly the shipbuilding part of modelling.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Especially when you're talking like such small scales, you just can't replicate that detail in plastic.
And having come from the old railway days was where we actually tracked it back to. I think it was you, Robert, who sort of mentioned that, where originally it came from. So, yeah. So, you don't think it's cheating?
Oh, look.
He's changed his mind instantly.
I am now. Yeah.
Everyone draws their line in a separate
that's it. Yeah,
place on the
true.
sand,
Yeah.
you know?
Look, I'm the first to admit that I'm a lazy modeler. I'll prefer to use aftermarket parts and scratch build because it comes down to time consumption.
It's whatever you want to do, I reckon.
Yeah.
It's your model. Go
That's
for your
right.
life.
As long as you're enjoying yourself doing it, that's number one.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, not every aftermarket shortcut is a shortcut.
No. There's a lot of times it will take you twice as long to do that
Like,
section.
how many like different options are there for like aftermarket instrument panels?
Oh,
But then you
tons.
sort of think, I could get this done faster if I just slapped the decal on a painted stock, instrument panel.
Yeah.
Which I'm not a fan of.
No.
I'm not a fan of decal instrument panels.
Yeah.
No.
See, it depends on how well it's printed, but I'll go with that because like half the time you can't see it anyway.
Once you close it up,
I don't care.
Yeah.
You know what I reckon's wrong about them? When they come printed, the outside of the bezel is always white.
Yes.
It shows up on the decal.
Yeah.
It's just going to be black. So really you need to put the decal on and then carefully paint all the bezels black again.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
I've seen people on 30-second scale aircraft. They'll actually punch out the decals.
Oh, that's an idea.
The gauges, just the gauges, and
Yep.
then just glue them in separately.
Those cats are crazy.
It's much bigger.
And then you can, there's all kinds of things you can do to do the actual like lens that goes over each of the gauges.
Oh, well. Ryan Hothersall writes in and says, referring to episode 89 about bad kits, the topic was very subjective to me as my idea of a bad kit is different to yours. As a builder of Cold War Eastern European aircraft in 1/72nd scale, the proper scale, according to Ryan, I have
The
been
gentleman's scale.
I've been exposed to some dodgy kits from obscure manufacturers of subjects no one else will ever make a kit of. But if it's the only game in town, what are you going to do? So I'm used to poor quality plastic and terrible fit. A good example is the 1/72nd scale Tu-14 Bosun from Red Hurricane, which I've never heard of Red Hurricane as a manufacturer.
It sounds like a Russian company to me.
Vaguely.
Yeah, he said that kit was bad, and for me to say that, it must have been really bad. So thanks very much for that, Ryan. I mean, have you guys, I know, Ian, you're a big one for pushing through and sticking with it, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. If it's the only game in town, you don't have a choice. If you want to do that subject, you just got to persevere. Look, to be honest with you, I'd prefer a new B-26 Marauder in 48 scale from a new company, but I don't see that happening. And the only game in town's a monogram, and the monogram kit's not too bad to begin with. It just needs updating.
See, my favourite tank is the M18 Hellcat. There's 2 kits of it, and both of them are terrible.
Yeah.
So I threw both of them in the bin.
Well, my philosophy on this is fairly simple. Wait. If you wait
That's
long
true.
enough, you
Yeah.
will get the kit.
Yeah.
And if you can't wait, what you do is you buy the kit, the bad kit. You don't build it, but you've got it. Sort of like always.
Insurance.
Yeah, you can always build it.
Or you get halfway through it, and then they'll release it.
Well,
It's happened to you, didn't it,
It's
Ian?
happened to me a few times.
Yeah.
Working
See?
on really terrible kits, and halfway through it, bang! Oh, look, Tomeya's releasing one of those.
Just wait.
Excellent.
just wait.
Now I've got this.
It makes you
48
wonder.
scale
It makes you wonder if that's the process that actually leads to it being made as a better kit.
Yeah, someone
out there has to build the crappy kit in order for Murphy's Law to take hold.
Yeah.
And then they release the good one.
That's true if you believe in magic.
Yeah. I remember years ago, I went the whole hog, and I think it was a HPW or something, one of those brand 48 scale Heinkel 219 Night Fighter.
Right.
Yeah.
It was the only one you could get in town, and it was solid resin body and everything. And it came with 2 nice engines, fair bit of photo etch and vac form cowlings and so forth. And it's a hell of a kit. And I got about a third of the way through, and then Tomeya releases one that's like, I'm just going to put it back in the box.
Did you build the Tamiya kit?
No, I don't even have it
There you go.
because I've gone off the boil with Luftwaffe subjects.
Right.
Next email comes from Kevin Kelly, and he has sent us a picture of an Australian M3 Stuart at Alamein in honour of us being Aussies, which is
good
really
on you.
Thank you.
But Kevin's got a question which is aimed at Ian with all his knowledge of everything P40. He says, I mostly build armour now, but I have built a lot of aircraft in the past. What are the best P40 kits using the following criteria? Number 1, it looks like a P40. I prefer the BC variant, but any mark is okay. 2, fit and engineering. I don't want to have to conquer the kit. 3, decent amount of kit details or aftermarket available. And 4, finally, I prefer 1/72nd or 1/48, but 32 could be okay too if it was all right.
Oh, BC, you're really limited with the BC, the earlies. What do you got?
Airfix.
Hobbycraft, I think it is.
Oh, if we took
48 scale, yeah, you got Hobbycraft, which, look, it's a basic kit.
Yeah.
It's
The old monogram one?
the old monogram, but then you're dealing with a very old kit with raised panel lines, even though the detail in it's not too bad. I think they're pretty much the only two games in town.
Airfix.
Oh, and the new Airfix, which isn't too bad a kit. There's only a couple of very slight issues with that, they say. But if you're willing to wait, I'm pretty sure Edward's got a BC in the pipelines coming out the next few years, and that'll be going off everything Edward's been doing lately. That's going to come out to be an absolute brilliant kit.
Yeah.
But 72 scale, I'm not too familiar with.
Well, that's the
not
thing,
my
right?
style.
Like, there's a reasonably good chance that if Edward bring it out in 48th, they'll do it in 72nd as well.
Yeah.
If their Focke-Wulf is anything to go by.
I think by reasonable chance you probably mean guarantee.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But seriously, if you want to build one that's going to be as accurate, I'd probably go the old monogram over the Hobbycraft, because the Hobbycraft kit's very basic.
Yeah,
I mean, really, really. Oh, actually, I forgot you also got Trumpeter.
In 48?
Is it Trumpeter or is it...
They do one, I think, in 32nd scale.
No, they also did one in 48.
Did they? Okay.
And it's the one with the really shallow...
Bronco do one.
Yeah, and they got the shallow cockpits. The cockpits are way too shallow, so the pilot would have to get his legs chopped off at the knees to fit.
Douglas Bader's aircraft.
Douglas Bader's aircraft. So, yeah, I'd stay well away from those if you're worried about accuracy and detail.
I'm not a P40 expert, but just going, I have the Airfix kit, and that's decent enough.
Yeah.
Fair
It's
enough.
not too bad. It's only like, I think they forgot to engrave the trim tab on the rudder on one side.
Yeah, and there's
which is
the nun's hat.
the nun's hat, but that's conjecture because the aircraft that they modelled it off had already had a couple of belly landings, so it's never going to be completely accurate anyway.
Yeah.
Sean Vale Rhodes writes in, greeting guys, just wanted to drop you a line regarding your episode 97 of On the Bench. I'm flattered that you took the episode idea I sent to you and ran with it with your usual aplomb. I just love how Ian flat out admitted he'll never be able to build all the kits he's bought over the years.
Yes, that's true. I won't.
And I was glad to be able to provide you with a little chuckle with my acronym SABLE, Stash Acquisition Beyond Life Expectancy. Very good.
Glad about that one.
Eric Semalaya. Oh, geez, Eric, I've butchered that name. Sorry.
Bet you
Writes in. He comes from Pleasanton, California.
That sounds nice.
That sounds like a very lovely place to live, Pleasanton.
Does. Hello and season's greetings to all you gentlemen. Oh, gee, we sure got the right email. A quick, not to tell you how much I enjoy the content you all put out. None of you do exactly the same thing, but each contributes to the enjoyment and education on our hobby. I also think it's great the way you support each other, and we're talking about the other podcasts.
Yep.
And hence the season greeting that I'm messaging you all once. Thanks again for all you do. Wishing you all a happy holiday season. I hope Santa brings Julian a sign-off. Ho, ho, ho.
Hey.
Ha, ha, ha.
Oh, jeez.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. I just realized that, like, Christmas is just around the corner, and I'll have to buy myself something for Christmas, something good, because no one will give me anything good. Nothing I want. It's not like they know what kit to get.
Yeah, well, that's the problem with us hobbyists. Like when it comes to family members, they got no idea what we do. Because when we try and talk to them, their eyes just glaze over.
Yeah.
The worst thing is when they do, all they know is your modeler, so they give you a kit. They don't probably pick the cheapest thing they can find.
Yeah, and a subject that you'd normally never touch.
Or worse still,
this is great.
they overpay for a bad kit.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, and then you feel guilty. What, I made you buy that? Oh, God.
And then they kind of expect you to build it.
Yeah. And then you're pressured into building something that you normally wouldn't even look at.
Christian O'Day writes in and he says, I really appreciate your podcast, and I've got a few suggestions of various topics that I've heard about you guys speak of as I binge listen to some episodes. So plastic sheet. He actually buys from a sign manufacturer, the plastic sheet from there, which is an interesting way of looking at it.
Geez, that'd be a lot cheaper than getting it through Evergreen.
It's high impact polystyrene and it's used for sign making and is perfect. Obviously, it glues with regular modelling cement and can take paint like normal plastic. And best of all, it's cheaper than plastic struck, etc., etc. He's suggesting perhaps some topics for the future, like modelling blues, how to get out of them. Or that time you just couldn't pick up a bit of plastic. What helps overcome the
loss of modelling mojo?
Yeah. Well, listening to podcasts. Yeah. That part about modelling. That's the best way to get out of that. Getting others involved in the hobby, how we can make it more palatable to the younger generation. Well, I think that's already really kicking off with
Gundam and all that sort of stuff.
And World of War tanks, World of Tanks and all that sort of stuff. But Christian goes, he struggles to get his children involved. Hey, I hear, I'm struggling. I've got 7 grandkids and only one's interested, and she's the girl out of all of them. Yeah. So, yeah. And do you have any modelling related hobbies? Christian says he builds wargaming scenery and buildings for Dungeons and Dragons, of which at least some of his children play that. And he says it's a way into the hobby. So that's interesting sort of thought, isn't it? You guys got any sort of hobby related?
Oh, I watch TV shows and things like that, of which you can get like models of them. Same with video games, you can get some of that sort of stuff. It's not really there, but it's getting there.
No. Me, no, not really. Nothing. It's modelling and that's it.
I just hoover up anything World War II I can find. Podcasts, books, TV shows.
Anything with a bit of history.
Yeah.
Jesse Escobedo writes in, hi guys, Jesse from Maryland here, which is directly adjacent to Virginia. I've been catching up the podcast and had a couple of thoughts that I hope are not too out of date. First off, if you're serious about history of rockets, you should start with Goddard's rocket in 172 scale, and he's actually sent me a link for that.
Because I mentioned that to you last time, didn't I?
Yeah.
You got to get Goddard's rocket.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't even look like a rocket, though, does it?
It just looks like a whole bunch of tubes and some framework. But it was the first rocket.
Yeah, fair enough.
It was.
Well, actually, the first modern rocket. We won't go into the old Chinese artillery rockets.
No, we won't. Second, I believe the reason Julian does not make sounds for his models is that the human mouth is simply not able to reproduce accurate enough engine and gun noises. The amount of resin, photo etch and glue required to modify it to do so would be detrimental to normal day-to-day functioning of his mouth. I think for Julian's well-being and safety, we should stop shaming and instead acknowledge that the sounds we make are not quite right, the Doppler effect exaggerated, and flaps are rarely in the correct position for the speed we zoom them around.
Good point.
Of course, the real reason Julian doesn't make the noises is because he's no fun.
I had fun once.
You didn't like it.
And it was terrible.
I had fun once and it was terrible.
Oh, jeez.
You sound particularly like a certain robot that's...
No, I read that on a little comic strip once. It was pretty funny.
It's like a human embodiment of Marvin.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, Marvin the robot from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, jeez.
No.
Well, that's all we have for mail today. Of course, if you want to get in touch with us, you can do so by sending us an email to onthebench64@gmail.com. We welcome all emails. We try to read them all out, and generally we do, but I might edit them in brevity of time. So thanks very much for everybody for reaching out.
Yes.
So don't waste your time writing a long email.
So what we might do, we might have a quick break, I think, and we'll come back and have a chat about what's new in the hobby world.
Sounds good.
Back shortly. Fine Scale Modeller is the world's most recognised and essential magazine for modellers and is available in all good newsagents and newsstands or wherever you purchase your magazines. Alternatively, go to their website www.finescale.com and subscribe to either a print edition or their digital edition. Go now. Go to www.finescale.com. Okay, and we're back again. We're going to have a chat about what's new in the modelling world. And first cab off the rank is we have Italeria's announcements for December. And the first one is an absolute cracker in 1/12 scale. They're doing an Alfa Romeo A8C 2300 Roadster. Oh, drool.
It's pretty old-timey.
Drink.
Yeah, that's a shot.
Yeah.
I could be seriously tempted to get this.
Yeah, it does look good, doesn't it?
It's just another European sports car to me.
Oh, you and your American-centric car stuff.
The Alfa Romeo 8C is considered one of the most famous sports cars of the 1930s, and it was had an 8-cylinder inline supercharged engine, I should say, with a displacement of 2,336 cc's. And we're looking at some sprue shots here, and it's multicolored, so it comes in red, clear parts,
Black,
Light grey.
and also there is some chrome parts as well.
Oh, and rubber tyres.
Yeah, vinyl tyres.
That's
Yeah,
not a
But
problem
with
for car models.
with car models, you can get away with rubber
par
tyres.
for the course.
Yep.
Oh, the mesh. I'm not a big fan of the mesh. It's not photo etch mesh.
Well, something extra you have to buy.
Yes.
oh,
Oh, it even comes with tie-down straps for the
it
bonnet.
does. So to celebrate the 110th anniversary of the famous Italian manufacturer, Italeria are releasing the 2-seat sport version. So hopefully that will be in the shops very shortly.
It's a nice looking car.
Is it a
no.
re-release though?
I don't know. I'd have to go to Scalemates to check that up.
Okay.
The next one is also got me very excited. It is in 1/48 scale. It is the H-21C Flying Banana gunship, which was a helicopter with a very unusual shape. It had a banana-type look to it, and it was used by the US, the Marines, and also I think the French, as well as I believe the British Army actually even flew this and used it perhaps in Malaya, although I'll stand corrected on that. So if you love your helicopters, it's definitely one that you need to add to your collection. There's no two ways about that. And I could seriously be tempted to get something like this as well.
I think you should.
Yeah, I think you should.
Yeah.
The Crusader Mark II in 1/35 scale is the next one. And it's funny because we've got an interview coming up shortly with Al Murray, who's a nut on English armour. Crusader, perhaps not their most successful British tank, but
they look pretty cool.
They look very cool. And that diamond-type turret is classic shape, isn't it?
Definitely. I like the Crusader. I just like the look of them.
It's about time we got a good kit of it.
Yeah.
Finally, in 1/24 scale, Range Rover. The Range Rover? Say that again. Range Rover. This is the 50th anniversary edition. Always known as gas guzzlers. I've got a mate at work who's actually owns one of these, and he loves it. And it just goes on and on and on. But geez, they're expensive
Didn't
to
they
repair.
have aluminium bodies?
I don't know.
Land Rovers used to.
Yeah, Land Rovers had
I
aluminium
don't think
bodies.
Range Rovers do. I think
Yeah,
it's
Land
too
Rovers
expensive.
did, yeah.
This comes with a number of different license plates. It'll be interesting to see if any of those are actually real. But if you like your car kits, this is definitely one to add to your collection. In 1/72 scale, got a Fiat BR20. Anybody want to have a crack at that pronunciation?
Colonia?
Yeah, Colonia. That sounds good.
Colonna?
There's no L. It's a.
It's not an L.
It's either Chiconia or
Okay,
Ciconia,
it's quite
I
far
think.
away from
Ciconia.
Right.
Ciconia, I think.
Looks a bit, from where I'm sitting, it looks a bit like a fat version of Handley Page Hampton.
It looks very similar to that. Of course, the challenge with doing anything in Italian from the war is that camouflage, which is enough to sort of put me off. I'd be very hesitant to try that.
Well, you can always do one of those late ones there that are all grey or white or whatever it is.
Yeah, interesting scheme, that one, isn't it? That's a 1937. It says pre-war version. Is that a grey colour?
I think so.
Yeah, very, very.
It's a very
odd.
light grey, yeah.
Yeah, like a gull grey.
So it comes with a number of decals that you can do.
Spanish Civil War.
Spanish Civil War, yes, and also pre-war and through into World War II as well.
You can actually do 2 versions of the kit. There's an early and a late.
Oh, okay.
And I think it has markings for the Battle of Britain too.
Of course, we forget that the Italians actually participated in the Battle of Britain.
Yeah,
however brief.
Got under the Germans' feet a lot.
Yeah. This announcement's got a lot of people excited. Kitty Hawk have announced that they're doing the Romeo version of the MH-60R in 1/35th scale, which is the marinised anti-submarine Seahawk, which our Navy operates 24 of them. So I know there are going to be a lot of Aussie models out there who are particularly interested and excited about this one. Now, it'd be interesting to see because this manufacturer hasn't exactly
endeared itself.
a bit hit and miss on some of their kits. So it'd be interesting to see how this one...
So this is from Kitty Hawk.
Yeah.
Their choppers are supposed to be better than their aircraft. Their planes.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Okay.
On average.
Unfortunately, I haven't got any sprue shots to actually have a look at, so I'm going to hold off pulling the trigger on this until I see some build reviews.
You know, for all their difficulty, though, people get good models out of them. So, if you're willing to put in the work,
yeah,
they make nice models.
Yeah.
Maybe not fun models, but...
Our favourite company, Mini Art, has announced in 1/35th scale a Panzerkampfwagen 4 OS H.
Vomag important.
What do you think, gents?
It's another German tank.
It's a fantastic Panzer IV. It's a Mini Art kit, so it was brilliant.
Lots and lots and lots of photo etch, which is...
even got photo etch shoes.
Which is perhaps not a bad idea because it'll be in scale.
Yeah, and plus you'll be able to bend them up really nicely and give them that real battered look.
The photo etch Scherzen's pretty common for the side shields.
But, it's got some decent paint schemes and...
Full interior.
Although, as David Burden points out, there's no way to rotate the turret. The turret rotation device is not there.
Oh, really?
In the kit?
Inside?
Yeah.
Are you going to see that, though, if you have it opened up? You're not going to be able to see that?
Probably not. But, when they do an interior, you want everything there.
Yes, true. Not half an interior.
Mung have announced in 1/35th scale they're going to be doing the heavy armoured personnel carrier Namer, which is the Israeli APC, which is based on the chassis of their main battle tank.
Oh, so it's based off Merkava.
Yeah, so this is
looks
interesting
very
concept.
futuristic, doesn't it?
Apparently, it's one of the heaviest armoured protection of infantry fighting vehicle that there is around.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, if it's based off the chassis of their main battle tank, I can well understand it. Carries a crew of about 10 troopers, I believe. So it looks like that'll make a great kit. And I think it comes with also which is sold separately, but the mine roller kit that fits to the front.
Didn't somebody else make a mine roller? A couple of mine roller kits.
Well, almost every modern armour kit of a Israeli subject comes with a mine roller these days. Or at least a variant of it will have it.
I presume a lot of their armour would have mine rollers, considering the area they live in.
The hatches are all movable, so you can have the rear entry door open or closed, and the hatches on top of the model can either be open or closed as well. So,
and I like the way how the back hatch is set so far in that when the troopers step out, they've at least got a little bit of protection on their sides for a couple of steps.
Yeah, I don't know the reason behind that. It'd be interesting to sort of do a bit of research.
I'd say more than likely by looking at the shape of it, I'd say there's a good chance they'd be hiding the radiators in that rear section. Not being a tank man, I'll probably wrong.
There's probably like air conditioners and things like that they put on the back as well.
Yes, because you definitely need air conditioners in that environment.
Might be an ensuite.
Ensuite, yes. A galley.
Yeah. Rifle models are announcing that they're giving us the F variant of the Panther, the OS FF.
Now, were they ever produced?
1/35th scale.
Were they ever produced? Because they're the ones, I think, with the smaller turret.
Well,
I think they made a hull.
It never came into fruition because the simple upgrading of the already in-service Panther tanks being retrofitted with several of the features. So there you go. There's some pictures of the actual prototype from which the tank was never produced. Another paper Panzer, really. Although there are some surviving turret is at Bovington Museum in the UK.
It looks like it's been used for target practice.
No doubt it has.
I think it's a bit less papery than other paper.
Yeah. But gee, that turret is small, isn't it?
It's a tiny turret.
I mean, how would you be able to sort of work in that with... I don't see how you could work in there. Interestingly, it came with infrared night fighting equipment, which the Germans were sort of pioneering at that part of the war. Or planning to anyway. So, that's all we have from there. The Falcon has written in with his new releases. Dun, 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 dun. Let's start off with aircraft. So, Sylvester's new military aircraft releases for 2021 have now been made public. After all the new armour, maritime and airliner releases, it has to be said that military aircraft list is a bit underwhelming. We have the new 148 scale MIL-24 Hind and also 148 scale Yak 130 Mitten. Kits of both of these were released earlier, so we can only guess that these are different variants. Also, which has been quite widely talked about around the hobby, is the 172nd scale J version of the C-130 Hercules.
I think they previously did the H, so the J's a new one.
Is that the longer fuselage?
I think it might be.
Yeah, J's got the longer, and it's got the different prop blades, and it's got the curved multi-bladed props.
And is in service with many air forces even today, certainly with the Royal Australian Air Force. So I know there's a lot.
How long those Hercules have been in service for now?
It's been a good design, hasn't it?
It's been proven design that's still carrying through
Very
even now. It seems the only completely new kit is going to be the 172nd scale Hawker Hurricane Mark II-C, which is coming out from Zvezda. Edward are planning to release 2 new 148 scale Spitfires, as if we'd need some more Spitfires.
Mark V
Always
is on
need
the
more
boards.
Spitfires.
Yeah, the Mark 5A and the Mark 5B, which is expected for a November 2021
So
release.
still no C-Wing,
What is it about the C-Wing that everyone wants?
because the RFF Mark V's were
okay.
C-Wing, had the C-Wing, which
Right.
had the different gun configurations.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Which is a real shame, because I'd love to see him do like an Aussie 8 style with the Mark 5s. Because there's a Mark 5, the Australian Mark 5s with that big tropical air scoop. They just look so mean.
Oh, yeah. They're going to do it. They'll bring one out.
Yeah, definitely.
Edward are also working on a completely new 148 scale World War I Sopwith Camel. They
Ooh.
have previously announced the 48 scale Camel, but Edward claimed that this is a brand new one and will be the most detailed World War I aircraft kit ever, bar none.
Wow, okay.
Have they heard of Wingnut Wings?
Well, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
But Wingnut Wings didn't do theirs in 48 scale, did they?
No, they didn't. But
Yeah.
they said the best in any scale.
Wow, that's a huge statement, isn't
Yeah,
it?
they do good work, but geez, that's a big claim.
That is a huge claim, yes.
The 48 scale will be slightly smaller.
It'd be a lot smaller.
Yeah.
It's funny now. People are now starting to get more into 48 scale. Now that Wingnut Wings are gone, stopped doing the 32nd scale stuff. People are like, oh yeah, we'll do some 48 scale.
Yeah.
Yeah. Edward and Special Hobby are said to be cooperating on a 172nd scale Hawker Tempest. That's interesting news. Clear Prop will be releasing their first 148 scale Curtis Hawk family early in 2021. The first kit will be a Curtis H75N, the type with a fixed undercarriage. There will be decals for 1 Argentine and 3 Chinese aircraft.
Ooh, Argentine markings would be interesting, wouldn't it?
I've actually seen the spurs in the box art for this.
Yeah.
And it's natural metal finish, so it's really looks really pretty in that
Yeah,
colour.
it would, yeah.
Yeah, and also I've seen they showed sprues and it looks nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice.
Well, going off their other kits, yeah, they do a really good job, that Clear Prop. Didn't they do what was it, the KI-27, or was it the Mitsubishi?
The Claudes.
The Claudes,
A5Ms,
yeah.
But
Oh, lovely looking kits.
they've also been showing they're doing a 48 scale A4D Sky Shark, and there's a built-up model on Britmod.
The Sky Shark.
Yeah, and it looks really nice.
Yeah, I've got to admit, the Sky Shark is a nice looking aircraft to begin with.
After the recent releases of 172nd scale Fairley 3F kits, Cora models will release a 172nd Fairley Gordon Mark 1 Brazilian Navy long float type late, and a 172nd scale Fairley Seal Mark 1 with Peruvian service, which is also a long float type.
I'm glad to see we're getting some Latin American schemes out there, because I think that's one area that's been sorely missed over the years.
What do Peruvian markings look like?
I'm trying to remember. But a lot of people don't realise the amount of wars that have happened in South America. And
good for them.
And interesting wars too.
And interesting wars.
Yeah, little interesting ones.
And interesting aircraft, like aircraft you would not expect to see, and then in the interesting, and some of the markings are just amazing. Right. For example, like everyone loves the Soccer War Corsairs in the jungle scheme. Like the F4U in a jungle scheme just looks right. Yeah.
And of course, we've got the Argentine Picara coming out soon, if not already available.
Yep.
Which is fantastic. Looks like it'd be a fantastic little model.
I think the only way you could do it before that was to get your hands on, which is nearly impossible, is the Aztec decals.
Right.
Apparently, there's conjecture on the forums that a Russian or Ukrainian company would be releasing a 1/72nd scale kit of a Boeing 707. Turns out that it will most likely be in 1/144th scale, and A model are the ones who are probably behind it.
Is that good news for you, Dave?
Well,
1/44th scale.
Yeah, I know, but can you imagine a 707 in 1/72nd scale? That'd be huge.
Be massive.
Yeah.
Wow. Last podcast, there was news of if you remember, there was news of the 1/144th scale Zeppelin from Micromere.
Yes.
Well, now people had a good look at the CAD renders, and it turns out that Micromere are actually going to be doing a kit as a military P-class Zeppelin, not the LZ-13 Hansa, which was the pre-war civilian type. Fun fact, even in small scale, a 1/144th scale P-class Zeppelin will measure at least 1.1 metres in length, or just over 44 inches in length.
In what scale?
In 1/144th.
How big were those things in real life?
Very big.
Wow.
If you wanted to do one in 48 scale, you would need to make plenty of space in the display cabinet, as it would be 3.4 metres long.
I tell you what, though, if you could probably scratch, that's probably a possible scratch building project.
I would, yeah. You'd need stocks in evergreen, though.
No, but I was thinking you could sort of like just do like sections, just made out of light wood, and just put stringers on, and that would be the main part of it. And the gondolas would be reasonably easy to do.
Yeah.
When you think about it, it should probably be in a ship scale, right? 1/700 or 1/350.
Yeah.
1/350 probably be better fit for it. But I'm just thinking,
still, wow.
At 1.1 metres long, you've got to wondering have they thought about the engineering as to how you're going to glue it together. Like for two halves together, you'd need some pretty strong support.
I'd say they'd probably need to make it in sections, because to do moulding on something that large, you're just asking for trouble.
I mean, that's possible because they do car bumpers in that much bigger. But wasn't there a submarine someone brought out a while back, that 72nd scale modern submarine that was built from sections?
Revell do a couple of German ones in 1/72nd scale.
Yeah, well, I've got the Bronco 1/35th scale coastal U-boat, and that comes in a number of sections.
Yeah,
I think that comes in about 4 sections.
Skipjack comes to mind.
Yeah, Skipjack. Yeah, that was
USS Skipjack.
Yeah, right. That was a large kit too. That was 72nd scale. Yeah.
Micromere's 1/72nd scale kit of the Armstrong Whitworth, the AW-52 British Experimental Flying Wing, is now available.
Yeah.
I read an interesting story about the guy that was testing that.
Yeah.
He was flying along just happily and just started to oscillate. And it was getting so bad he had to eject out because he knew within seconds he'd be unconscious just from the oscillations. Then the plane went and landed itself.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh.
How do you explain that?
Pilot-induced oscillations? AFE Club will release a new boxing of their 1/48 scale Northrop F5E Tiger II. The Peace Bell program kit contains markings for aircraft from the Yemen and Taiwan Air Forces.
Geez, that kit's been around for years, hasn't it?
Apparently it's pretty good.
Moving on to Gecko Models will release another version of their 1/35th scale British ATMP. This one will come with a SLLPT and drop trailer. I'm not really familiar with that.
No, me neither.
Roden will be releasing a 135th scale kit of a Packard Clipper US Army staff car. Well, I reckon that'll be popular. That'd be rather good, actually. Mini Art have announced another addition to their range of 135th scale Bulldog Lance tractors, a D8532 German traffic tractor. Going by the marking options, this is going to be a post-World War II type. Trumpeter have a couple of new 135th kits for release soon. A Ket T recovery vehicle based on the Maz 537 heavy truck and a T80 UD MBT main battle tank early version. Merit have announced a 135th scale M923A2 US Army truck, which will please some of our American modelers. An AFE Club is showing pictures of a built-up test shot of their highly anticipated 135th scale Churchill Mark 7, yes. Based on the earlier Churchill kit, the new model will be substantially different with an all-new Mark 7 hull and turret. For the first time, an AFE Club Churchill will contain engine components.
Ooh.
Finally, there is a use for those posable hatches on the engine deck. 6 marking options will also be provided. Moving on to Mini Art, they will release a 135th scale Panzer Boa Catcher Wagen 4, which is an Ostj late production. I've got no idea what the hell that is.
Boab. Wasn't that Boab's usually the ammunition carriers?
Is it Bayabacta?
Something
Observer
like
tank?
BOEBACHTR.
Oh, yes. Yeah, probably observer. Yeah,
It may well
observation, yeah.
Isn't there a newspaper called the Bayabacta?
It could be.
And the Falcon heard my cry from last episode because we got some maritime news here.
Oh, big maritime news.
Micromere have just released a 350 scale kit of the US Navy's nuclear submarine, the SSN 597 Tuliby, which
I've
is
never heard of it.
Nuke. Oh, it's a
Tuliby. What do they name their subs for? Is it
fish.
Oh, right.
Yeah, fish.
Yeah. Well, certainly during World War II, it was fish.
Right.
Yeah.
So you had the halibut and you had skipjack and it wasn't until they sort of got into the big nukes where they started naming after states
cities,
and cities,
Yeah.
Okay.
which is interesting.
So was Tuliby a fish or a city?
Oh, I guess it'll be a fish of some description. I'm thinking off the top of my head. No doubt our American listeners. The US Navy's always puzzled me. They've sort of, with their naming conventions now, they're going for people in a lot of their destroyers and such, which is all fine to recognise, fallen troops from the past. But, and the aircraft carriers are now named after presidents, which makes me cry because I miss, the old names, of aircraft carriers, and they should sort of revive some of those.
Like Intrepid and stuff like that.
Well, I think Intrepid, you look at the ones from World War II, so you got the Hornet, for example, and Yorktown and
Essex.
Wasp,
yes.
Bring back those great names.
Bonhomme Richard.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I am in favour of any kind of different name because as a modeler who doesn't know that much about ships, it's really confusing when you've got like 2 different ships by the same name.
Oh, yeah, because of the one was built way back and one was built modern, yeah.
Well, then the name USS Enterprises must really screw with you because you've got the Star Trek version as well as the old
let's just say
you've got the old-timey sailing version and then you've got World War II and the post-World War II.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah, there was at least 4 Enterprises.
This is overcomplicating things. For the sake of the modelers of the world, they really should, change the entire US Navy
or do what we do. Well, HMS Australia 1, HMAS Australia 2.
Yeah, although it's not known as 2, it's just known as HMAS Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But speaking of HMAS, did you see, I read this week that our that Teddy Sheehan is going to be posthumously finally awarded a Victoria Cross.
The first Victoria Cross to be awarded to an Australian Navy personnel.
Yep.
Teddy Sheehan is famous for
manning the gun to the last. Well, he actually went below the waves shooting.
He strapped himself to the gun, and as the ship sank, he continued firing while his crewmates abandoned ship. And continued firing at Japanese aircraft,
which saved so many people.
And was seen still firing as the anti-aircraft gun was mounted on the bow. And the ship sunk stern first, and he strapped himself to the gun because he'd been wounded. And even as the water lapped his legs and sunk in, the gun was still firing as it went down.
No, there's courage.
Why are our forces so mean about giving out medals?
No, it's not so mean about giving out medals. It's just something that I don't know why. I think it's perhaps because historically during World War II, we were still quite dominated by the Royal Navy in the officer hierarchy. Whereas in our Army and Air Force, we weren't. Which is a bit different. And there's a lot of criteria for you have to go through to get to that higher award. And for those listeners who don't understand, the Victoria Cross is the highest honour in any of the Commonwealth and British forces.
It's like the American Medal of Honour.
Yes, spot on.
But whereas with the VC, when it was first awarded, they were giving them out like chips. They gave them out left, right, and centre. And it was only after
at the time, you mean?
Yeah, when the VCs were first being released, because actually, I think it was Queen Victoria was the one who actually picked the idea.
Hence the name Victoria Cross.
Someone mentioned that, look, these guys are just regular soldiers. Why is it that their commanders are getting the medals, whereas these guys are doing the work? It's not fair on them, and it's not good for morale. And thus they came up with, and then of course capturing the cannons during the Crimean War, which they used the cannon material to
melt down and make the metal. So I think the highest number of VCs in a single battle still remains Rorke's Drift. I think from memory,
17 or something.
Or something like that. The heck of a lot of them were awarded. Well deserved as well.
Oh, definitely. Most definitely.
Anyway, we strayed off subject there a bit.
You hit the nail on the head. They were given out for morale purposes. That's why there were so many of them back then, but they're under no obligation now.
No, nowadays you got to earn it and really earn it.
Yeah, it's got to be really sort of the highest courage showed under fire.
Exactly. Yep. Too true.
Very interesting. Yeah. Well, that's all I've got from what's new. You guys got anything to feed in?
Don't think so.
No.
I've got maybe a little thing.
Yeah.
I noticed that I'm using Hobby putting out an IDF Shotcal Aleph tank, which is a Centurion.
Yes.
And it's 1973 Valley of Tears. So I don't know much about the wars in the Middle East, but apparently that's one for
73 was the Yom Kippur War.
Right.
And that was a very hard-fought battle in that particular sector. I think it was against the Syrians, I want to say off the top of my head, but I'll be corrected on that. But it was
that period of time was very back and forward, and
well, the Israeli army really got knocked for six because the Egyptians came roaring across, and so they went down and dealt with them, and they were. The Syrians, I think, were moving across the Golan Heights and coming down from there. And this is just a very pricey version of it. So the Egyptians got dealt with, and then the Israeli armies turned around and sent all the armoured divisions back over to deal with the Syrians, and it was a very hard fought. And that's when a lot of the first anti-tank rockets sort of were used in the battlefield and all that sort of stuff as well, quite successfully by the Arab forces.
Would that have been Sagas?
Yes, all those types of ones. Yeah. So it's very interesting.
Right. I've got just one more thing. It's not super new, but Dora Wings are working on a Volti Vengeance in 48 Scout. They've been showing CAD, and they're doing the full bomb bay, and it's looking really, really nice.
It does look nice.
Yeah.
We flew them in the RWF.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dive by.
Yeah, I think we're probably one of the only nations that actually appreciated them.
I think also, I remember reading the Indian Air Force were using them quite successfully.
You know what I actually watched a documentary on last night?
What's
on
that?
The Brewster Buccaneer. What
right.
a dog of an aircraft that was.
It looks good though. I like the look of it.
The Brewster Buccaneer.
Yeah, it's like a cross of Buffalo with a Helldiver.
was that the biplane version?
No. It looks a lot like it. You look at it from a distance. You look at it and you think, oh, it's a Helldiver.
Hmm.
And then the closer you look, it's got the buffalo tail and it's got the big greenhouse canopy. But what shot Brewster in the foot was their bad management. Absolutely bad. Like, it got to one point they were coming off the assembly line and going straight to the scrapyard.
Oh, wow.
They were such a dog. There's only 2 surviving.
Yeah.
The Royal Air Force, I think, claimed them as an aircraft never to be used in combat. Australia and New Zealand, as soon as we found out what they were like, we cancelled our contracts.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Take that shit away. We do not want that anywhere near us.
Yeah.
The only unit in America that actually used them was the Marines, and I think they were just used for basic training, which they thought was a dumb idea because they were a hell of an aircraft to use, and put a trainer in it. I think where they were training somewhere, I can't remember where it was, but they called this one area, it was just Crash Alley, because every day a Buccaneer would fall out of the sky.
Oh, gosh.
They were just a shocking aircraft.
Yeah.
But if someone builds a model in 48 scale, I'd probably buy one.
I wouldn't mind getting the Dora Wings 89. Curtis 89.
Oh, yeah.
I've been watching that one take place. It's a little twin engine thing.
Yeah, I know the 18.
Yeah, the Jeep, isn't it?
The Jeep,
yeah. That's a great looking little aircraft.
Yeah, it's actually really small.
Mm.
I wouldn't mind doing that just so I've got an excuse to do something in a shiny aluminium look.
Yep.
You know, I haven't done like a shiny aluminium look because it's like, most of my stuff is military aircraft.
Mm.
But that is the one civilian aircraft I would maybe try.
Yep. Very cool.
Yeah, that's on the horizon from Dora Wings as well.
Geez, they're turning stuff out, aren't they?
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
Probably
I think they're getting better. Like the 2 kits that I've got, I think they're getting better.
Well, did they have a rep as a bad manufacturer?
No, they're just very, very new, and they're still,
So it's true. They probably have the odd little
things.
teething problems here and there, but they seem to be one of those companies that's actually, they acknowledge if they've got a slight problem, they'll fix it.
Yeah. Okay.
So they're in that way, they're very professional.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. In
so
this
I've got their I got the Frenchie plane that I did the
Diwantine, or the Marcel Bloch, 520
Bloch,
or something.
Whatever it is.
152, yeah.
MB152, and then I've got the what's the other one? The forerunner of the P47. The Lancer.
The Lancer P46.
P43.
Oh, P43, yes.
Yeah.
Lancer,
and like the difference between them is pretty apparent.
Yeah.
The Frenchie plane has the 3-piece lower wing, and the other one has a 1-piece lower wing. So it's like that's an improvement.
Yes.
Having a 1-piece, that's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah. Whereas me, I stitched myself up last week by watching a movie, and now I've got to buy a kit.
What movie did you watch?
Strategic Air Command.
So you're going to get the Peacemaker?
I'm on the hunt now for the old monogram Peacemaker.
What's the term? 6 turning and 4 burning.
Yep. It's just such a cool looking aeroplane.
I reckon it is a magnificent looking aircraft.
That and the B-47.
Which I've got in 1/144
I'd love
scale.
one in 148.
Yeah.
Even though it would be a huge kit, I'd love one in 148.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen a photograph of a B-36 parked next to a B-29. And the B-29 looks like a toy.
Yeah, it does,
yes.
doesn't it? Yeah.
And it was a big aircraft.
Yeah. Well, the B-36 actually had a motorised trolley to get from forward to up.
I think you might have to break your constant scale for this.
Oh yeah, definitely. It'd be 72nd. There was that 148. No, there was that 148 scale one that came out.
Is it still available? Did
Probably
they sell them all?
No,
Nah,
I'd say they were.
That's gone.
You'd have to mortgage your house to buy that anyway.
Yeah.
The price on that would just be. And anyway, where in the heck would you ever be able to put?
That'd have to be a roof hanger, a ceiling hanger.
And that's a big no-no in my books.
Yeah.
No, you do not hang your models from the ceiling. No.
Imagine the weight of a 48 scale B-36 in resin hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah.
Not to mention you never get to see the top side of it.
Well, that's right.
Yeah. All it does is catch dust.
Oh, you get the view of what the Russians would have seen as it came over.
Yes.
144?
Yeah, 144 would probably be a decent size for something like that.
No,
Yeah.
72nd scale would be the way to go.
Wait, you're saying no to Dave's scale?
Yeah, well, no, if it had it in 1/144 scale, because the B-47 I've got in 1/144 scale almost seems like a 1/72nd scale. It's such a large aircraft.
Mm.
So imagining what the Peacemaker would be in, it'd work in 1/144 scale quite well, actually.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually it would.
Because the monogram kit for its time, that was the largest kit plastic injection kit for 20, 30 years, if not longer.
A long time.
Well, I can't go over these guys who are buying the B-52s in 1/72 scale. Oh my God, it's a huge kit.
I built one of those for 1/72 scale years ago.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did a commission job for a guy.
Oh.
And then he had the gall to enter it in a competition under his own name.
Oh, that's a big
But
no-no.
unfortunately for him, I was at the same competition. So quick word to the judges. You do realise, mate, he didn't build that. So I felt a bit bad about getting him getting him disqualified. But
tough luck.
Yeah.
By bad, do you mean good? Because I'd have felt good.
No, but did feel a bit good.
All right, we've got a fantastic interview coming up with
looking
Al
forward to that.
Murray. So we'll be back very shortly. And hello, listeners, and we have a very special guest for you this episode. Actually, it's a comedian who has been rated as one of the top 14 stand-up comedians in the UK.
That means I was number 14.
Celebrated author, podcast host on a very famous podcast, but he also carries a dark secret, and that is he's a British tank modeler. Hello, Al Murray.
Hello, how you doing? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Doesn't really matter what time it is, does it?
No.
Not when you got a scale model on the bench and you're deciding whether to put another coat of paint on or go for a slash.
That's right. You can always cross your legs while you're painting.
Exactly.
So you exclusively model British armour, or you have other subjects that you're interested in as well?
Well, basically, when I decided to sort of get back into scale modelling, it was about a year and a half ago, because of the podcast. We were talking about British armour so much, and trying to sort of peel the onion a bit on the received view of it and how terrible it is, and how every tank was inadequately armoured, and blah 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 blah, all the stuff you've heard a billion times, right? And I thought, well, I'll make some models of this, and because the Comet. Because it all ends. It ends with the Centurion, arguably, but they only get 8 to Europe before the Second World War ends, right? They get 8 to Belgium to try them out.
Yep.
But the Comet, arrives by the autumn and it outclasses absolutely every armored fighting vehicle in the world at the time, right? But British tanks are shit, and they've always been shit, and the narrative is they're shit, and we're not innovative. We don't come up with the ideas, and they're unreliable. Blah 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 blah. But in fact, actually. By the winter of 1944, the best AFV is out there. It's a Comet. It's got the short 17-pounder on it, or the short 76, or whatever they called it, and it's a low profile, high speed. It's basically a before the main battle tank. It's a main battle tank. It's got everything Centurion ends up sort of crystallizing. And so I thought, what I'll do is so the first one I bought was it's this Bronco Comet. There's a real pig. So that was my first introduction back.
I've built that pig.
Well, yeah, and I remember buying it and the bloke going, I said, and I got in this shop. There's a great shop in a town near me called Dorking Models, and it's like the shops were when I was a boy. There's kits up to the ceiling. There's racks of paint. There's sort of the reduced stuff he can't shift, and then really weird things. It's like complete sensory nostalgia being in the smell of the opening the boxes. And I told him, I'm getting back into it. And then I come back to the till with his Comet, and he's basically, "Are you sure?" No, I'll give it a crack. So I made that, and I thought, well, now what I'll do is We'll try and go back to the start. And basically, the idea was to have along the shelf the evolution of the British tank to the Centurion. Go back in time, and then do the Centurion last. That was what I was going to do.
Yep.
Then I got drawn into Firefly and the Sherman types and the different wheelbases on the Shermans, and so it's mainly British armour. And I've really got a thing for the Sherman, but there is some German stuff as well. I've made some Sturgs and a Tiger and a Panther, and had to go at the sort of kind of the glamour models, if you want.
Yeah.
But the things I'm more interested in are the sort of all the different uses they put the Sherman chassis to, which is so interesting, and also just all of it nixes all the things that people say about British armour and then Allied armour in particular.
Yeah.
That once you delve into it, like all that evaporates, all the cliche.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even because here in Australia, our troops had a real soft spot for the Matilda because it did so well in the desert.
Yeah.
And nothing could knock it out. It just kept going and going and going. Mind you, it couldn't hit much else itself, but it was designed as an infantry support tank. It wasn't designed as a main battle tank. And in that role,
and they carried on. You carried on using them in all your other theatre stuff in the Eastern Theatre, and the infantry tank concept works if there are no other tanks about. And the Japanese don't have, so it can keep going and going. It can literally drive up to the pillbox, deal with it, and then move on to the next one, which is what they're doing with Churchill in Normandy as well. So, I mean, I think, this whole thing that their British tanks are rubbish is junk and a classic British thing of running ourselves down and also being bewitched by the Germans.
Well, not just British tanks, Allied tanks as well, because the Sherman obviously is the US tank. The Stuart, I mean, that served with distinction in the Pacific War, in our island hopping campaign. And, and I can't agree with you more, this sort of fanboy base from, who ooh and ah over the German tanks. Yeah, they were pretty sexy looking tanks and everything. But, I mean, the Tigers, they only built, 1,200 of the damn things. How can you win a war only building 1,200 tanks?
Well, because you think, well, I suppose because you're relying on the Russians using their 40,000 that they made in response really ineptly, and that works fairly well for them for a while, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Like the infamous Michael Wittmann. The only reason he's got so many scores on his sort of tally is because he's been fighting the Russians, and the Russians charge in vast amounts sufficient distance for him to do, because he can deal with them a mile away before they can even lob anything in. I mean, it's well worn ground, this, but I think I just got completely sucked into the different Sherman types, because there's a chassis that they designed off the shelf, because the American Army in 1939 there's still cavalry. And everyone goes, "Oh, the British Army's still a cavalry." It's still American cavalry.
Yeah.
They haven't got any soldiers. They're just starting to get the rifle, the Garand, up and running. But then when the moment comes for a medium tank, they buy the suspension off the shelf. They go, "Well, that works. We'll have that." They buy the engine off the shelf, and they basically put it together from OEM parts, which is really, really interesting, and also so American in the way that you solve that problem.
Yeah.
Whereas the British are thinking, well, we've got a load of Merlin engines lying around. What are we going to do with this? Oh, we'll stick it in a tank. Oh, brilliant. It does 40 miles an hour now. and that's a policy born of an emphasis on air defense anyway, that you need loads of Merlin engines at the start of the war. And then it turns out you've made too many, which is where the Meteor ends up in the Churchill. But in the Cromwell, rather. I mean, but the Sherman is fascinating. The priest, the sexton, the recovery vehicle, the M32, and the other and they're all M3 variants anyway. They all come off the Stuart and off the Lee or the Grant or whatever you want to call it. They'll come out of that anyway, where they're running all that gear in before they get the turret right. It's just brilliant.
I think also it's important that to note that people often forget that the military will put out an order for a certain type of tank with specifications, and it's up to the manufacturers to meet those requirements. All the British tanks had to be so narrow to fit on the railway lines, right?
Yeah, there's the railway gauge thing, which of course when they get to Centurion they go, don't worry about that, we'll ditch that. That's held things up, and it ends up with a wider chassis, and it's that much heavier because they're trying to make that 40 tons. I think it ends up in the late 40s, and they go, oh well, doesn't matter then. This tank's so good, doesn't matter about the train anymore. They think, oh, for God's sake, after all that. But by the same consideration, the Germans aren't thinking like that, and Tiger ends up too heavy to go across lots of bridges, and it's very heavy to shift around by train, and needs a very heavy recovery vehicle and a very heavy road vehicle if it's being low loaded. Yes, the British tanks have to fit on trains, but that then also means they can go across a Bailey Bridge. And if you're gearing to that, if that's the way you're thinking in a total operational way, which is the thing we always go on about on our podcast, the operational level, you're thinking, well, they're going to be blown bridges, so we'll have a flat pack bridge in the form of the Bailey Bridge. So that's got to be able to withstand our tanks. I mean, it's interesting. For instance, Pegasus Bridge, the very, very famous capture of Pegasus Bridge by the Oxen Bucks.
Yep.
There's a platoon of sappers with them, right? And their job, first of all, is they've got to, find any charges on the bridge and get rid of them. And the second job, and then their secondary job is they've got rubber dinghies and gear for getting across the bridge, getting across the canal anyway, if the bridge is blown. So they've come with an amphibious element. But the first people to get to Pegasus Bridge on the morning of June the 6th is not, apart from Seven Para, who land half an hour later, who always get left out of this story. They relieve the Oxen Bucks immediately. But the first people to get to Pegasus Bridge on the morning of D-Day is a sapper officer who's come up from the beach landing, and the thing he's there to do is make sure that bridge can actually take Allied armour, because they're thinking like that the whole time. They're not going, right, we'll build a great big fuck-off tank that can destroy everything a mile and a half away from it. Yeah. They're thinking, right, well, we're invading here. We need to be mobile. We're going to need to be going forward. So what the tank weighs is crucially important, to the point where, because when they catch a Pegasus Bridge, they don't really know enough about it. They don't know if it can take a Sherman. They don't know if it can take a Churchill. They just don't know. So someone goes forward to find out. So they're thinking like that the whole time. And like you say, so that thinking is going on in the military, that then gets processed by the War Office, that then gets written up as a spec that goes to a manufacturer. And then the manufacturer, probably buys the engine from someone else, buys the suspension or uses one that they know works. And then there'll be all the argument that goes on, and they send it off to be tested. And, there's the infamous test where they drive the Sherman, and I can't remember what the operation's called, but they drive a Sherman and a Cromwell 2,000 miles around the country, and the Sherman wins because it doesn't break down in that entire journey. It's the most reliable from that trip all the way around the country, all the way around England. And so the army are like falling over themselves over the Sherman for that reason. Montgomery in particular goes, right, give me as many of those as you can. And by the way, we're going to need to put a 17-pounder on it. And that's all going on all at once. And I mean, I think the really striking thing about Firefly, for instance, is the British capture a Tiger in March, February, or April. I can't remember. It's during the capture 131, which is at Bovington now.
Yep.
And the following month, work begins on how do we get a 17-pounder onto a Firefly, onto a Sherman. How do we do that? Because we're going to run into this thing, so we better get cracking on it. And that doesn't say to me British tank procurement is sclerotic, not joined up, amateurish. It says to me some very serious people are thinking, right, how do we deal with this?
Yeah, exactly right. Of course. Absolutely. So
because there's a war on.
And that's what the interesting thing about when you're modelling, when you're building it, you can sort of look at it and you can appreciate the sort of the engineering that's sort of gone into it and the understanding, the thought process that's gone into it. Much like, let's talk about the Sherman, for example. I mean, the Sherman, I don't want to sort of denigrate any of the troops or anything, but you didn't have to have a high IQ to be able to sort of disassemble or fix parts on it. It was made quick and easy, sort of like the running gear.
Yep.
Unlike the German Panther, for example, where you had all those bloody road wheels.
I'll tell you what, from a modelling perspective, I say this often, but who wants to paint 50 wheels? I don't.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yes, that's where the mud comes in.
Exactly.
Think, right, okay, this Panther is really muddy because I can't be arsed with this.
Yes.
And that's one of the good things about building armour. You can hide your mistakes with judicious application of mud effects everywhere as well.
You say that, but I reckon that's really hard to do effectively.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's hard enough that I don't bother to do it most of the
time. I'm blown away by the because the last time I sort of stopped doing this when I was sort of 14.
Right.
When I got in when I ran into girls and I think which is a common story and the leaps and bounds or the difference in the products and also the fact that I'm not like on pocket money anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps enormously. Like just the stuff that you can get now on these washes and like these flurry washes. Someone's just got me into that, like you cake on and then you can wash off and have different, as much or as little grime as you want.
Yeah.
Like that, what? It's incredible. And mud pens and, it's amazing.
But at the same time, it can be confusing for the modeler just coming into or back into the hobby after a 10, 15, 20-year hiatus because there's so many new products on the market. But unlike you, I mean, I used to go into the hobby shop when I was, 10, 11, 12, and you look at the Tamiya kits and you go, oh, I wish I could afford them.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to buy the Airfix one because that's all I can afford.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you had to struggle with the Airfix glue.
Yes. Oh, gosh.
Good old stringy glue.
You might end up with the Airfix Churchill too, with all those millions of wheels you've got to put onto it.
Oh man. Well, I've got oh god, which Churchill is it? I think it's the
Club.
AF. Yeah. Oh Jesus Christ. The AF.
I've just built 3 of those.
Have you? The suspension is like doing admin.
Oh,
Yeah,
It's like filling it. It's like filling in a tax return. Oh God, I've got to do this again.
you just don't follow the instructions. There's a trick to doing it.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
All right.
It's impossible if you follow the instructions. It just all springs apart. But you've got to partially glue it together as you go. But it's a beautiful kit. And they're just bringing out a Mark 7. I'm hitting them out.
I've got the one with the, I got the one with the carpet wheel. The carpet laying one. Because I thought some Avery would be cool, but basically that kit comes out the box every kind of 3-4 months. I do a bit on it, and I go, oh God, I just can't be bothered.
Yeah.
It's driving me mad.
Well, you think that's driving you mad? Wait till you build a mini art kit. Talk about overcomplicated.
Don't say anything bad about Mini Art.
No, I will. I will. I'm building one right now, and I'm not happy.
What is it?
Mini Art. I'm currently building the what's it? FL282, the little Nazi
Gyro chopper.
It's a helicopter.
Yeah.
It's just all tube frame, and it's really fiddly stuff. They love to break everything down into like a billion pieces, and
I've got a dingo. I've got a dingo on the go, and I gave up on it basically. Also, because the plastic's so soft, it's really unforgiving. And if if the plastic were a bit more brittle, if you make a mistake cutting, you're like, oh Jesus, that's and you've got photo etched parts for like brake pedals and clutches that no one will ever see.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I built the Daimler and armoured scout car because Dad served in Queen Mary's own Hussars, 13th, 18th.
Wow.
He came in after the war, so he was in national service and got sent to the desert where they were stationed after the war.
Yeah.
Actually, he's well pissed off because he was only supposed to be in there for 2 years, but the Korean War kicked off, so they made him stay for an extra year.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
So anyway, it was the only kit that was available, and I wanted the armoured car variant with a turret on top, and I had to end up going with Acura Armour kits, which is made in the UK. And I'm just waiting for that to arrive now. But that Mini Art one, like you said, oh my God, the tiny little fiddly bits that were, you could have moulded it on. Why send, and the running gear for the wheels, it gave me a headache. Yeah. And in the end I thought, well, hang on, Dad's 91 now. I'll glue it down. He won't be able to see all the botched, modelling that I've done underneath it, and it looks good from the top. So he was well pleased with it. He was very happy with it.
Oh, that's lovely. That's a lovely thing to have done then. I mean, the thing is, it's interesting because I was talking to this guy Marcus from the Tamiya magazine here in the UK, and about getting back into it.
Yeah.
And he said their philosophy always was, the whole idea is you build the kit quickly, say buy another one.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And if basically it takes you 6 months to build like a 4-wheeled armoured car, you're never going to buy another model, are you?
No, that's right.
Well, the problem is people do, and then they don't build them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're collectors.
The infamous stash.
Now, something I want to touch on, because I really like the Comet as well, and I did build that kit, and it really peeved me how it doesn't have the canvas mantlet cover.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because you see that in every single photo, and it's just not there.
Yeah.
You have to go aftermarket, and none of the aftermarket's available because no one makes it anymore.
Yeah.
Have to build it yourself.
Scratch build.
I think that the guy in Dorking had them, but I didn't know what they were at the time. I didn't realize what I was missing because it was the first kit when I came back. I mean, I was quite pleased with that. They're all behind me. All the stuff's behind me here. Hang on. There we go. So this really show. It's me going. Oh, I can do stowage. I'd not heard it. I'd not really thought about stowage when I was a kid. No. So it's all quite functional, really. And canvas mantling, like you say. And I hadn't got into the weathering. I hadn't got into this thing that I've really enjoyed doing, which is using the vehicle as like a palette and mixing the paint on the vehicle and putting the salt thing in that I got into earlier in the year, putting sea salt in and stressing the paint out and then adding in other colours and watching them sort of fight it out to create like wear and tear in the paint. And that's the thing I found most. I mean, building them is kind of like, yeah, all right. I just want to get it. I want to get to the point where I can get going on the finish.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Get the boring shit out of the way first.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a very good representation of the vehicle, of the tank itself when you see it. I mean, I've read the purists think it's not quite right, but I mean, it's
close enough.
It's close enough, and after all, in the end, all you're ever doing quite is a representation rather than a, I sort of approach this impressionistically. How far away is it anyway? How far is a 1/35th vehicle anyway? It's like over there, isn't it? It's not up here. It's over there. So if it doesn't look exactly as it would if you were stood right next to it, I don't know. It's a thing I sort of taken to grappling with as I've done more kits and got more back into it.
Yeah, well, everyone's got like their peculiarities and their interests within the hobby. Like some people get more into construction, other people get more into painting, weathering.
Yeah. As long as it's not figures, Jesus Christ.
That's a whole different. It should almost be a separate hobby.
Yeah.
Well, Ian, you've got just one figure that you sort of painted, and you move from tank to tank, don't you?
No,
that's Robert.
That's Robert who does that. Sorry, yes, it's Robert.
No,
and it's not that great either, but he's just there.
No, I've just got my little cheesecake girl that I put on my aeroplanes.
Oh, yeah. I like doing my armour as if it's fresh out of the factory.
Right.
And
that's the easy way.
Right.
Well, that's the easy way. It is, but for some reason, I've like build my ships that way, like museum sort of quality sort of ships.
I can't do that.
And I'm only now just starting to get into the armour where I do the weathering and stuff, and as I did with that Sheridan tank from Vietnam. And I thought, oh, this is great. I can hide, my mistakes. I should have come across weathering a lot earlier.
Tanks need to be weathered.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and also when you, it's led me to doing sort of weird things when I'm in traffic. If I see a tractor, what's the mud doing? How's the mud behaved on that, on that vehicle? Where does the mud end up? And you start thinking like that. And then when you do see tanks out in the real world, they've often got stuff upside down that you'd never see. And certainly once you get into the photo archive of the Second World War, and obviously there are problems with that because it's all black and white, so you never really know. You never know what colour anything is really. You don't know if something's a different dapple in a paint pattern or a shadow for a thing behind the camera that you can't see, that you can't make out, and all that. But the moment you get into, stowage is the great thing. The moment you get into stowage on tanks on the move, it's like pianos and chickens.
And a lot of modelers always forget to tie down their stowage. Yeah, they just sort of stick it on and they're like, it just sits there.
Julian, stowage is magnetic.
Yeah, it's magnetic. Yeah, that magnetic stuff. There's magnetic boxes. Yeah.
Yeah, I found some pictures of a Bren carrier with corrugated iron on the back that someone put up. So that's what I did on my last Bren carriers. I found some corrugated iron somewhere. Did it welded on that they'd obviously put on as a sort of duck board to jam more stuff in. And that was cool. That's when you're like thinking, right, okay, I'll put the Tamiya artwork down and come up with something myself.
Yep.
That was exciting to find a picture that like justifies doing that as well. It's cool.
Might I suggest the next universal carrier you make it the rich models one, because if you think the mini art kit was difficult, the Ridge kit is beautiful, but so complicated.
Really?
Yeah, but it's worth it in the end.
It's got like a bogies on the bottom with little springs, right?
Yeah.
Metal springs.
Yeah. And
Really?
Even the seat supports are actually made from etched metal, and you can barely see them, but they're in scale and beautiful. So once you've built it, you like
See, Robert here, he's a real construction perfectionist, right?
Right.
No, I'm a fixer-upper because I make mistakes as I go. So.
Right. Yeah. So what he does, and I love making fun of him for this, is that he'll try and fix something to make it more accurate, realize that he did it wrong, and he has to put it back to the way it was when he started.
Oh, God.
That's the fun of it.
The fun?
You don't do everything twice.
Yeah, obviously not. Yeah. Well, we've all got our own perverse ideas of fun. I mean, the thing is, in Australia, are there good shops still, or is it?
Yeah.
Because everything's online here. Around there's like not many shops left. No, so I seem to remember for the times I've been to Melbourne, there's that near Melbourne Central on the hill going down. I can't remember which. There's an underpass and a shop on the sort of incline down. I can't remember.
Hearn's Hobbies.
Hearn's Hobbies.
Right around the corner from the railway station.
That's right. They always had big Wehrmacht figures in the window. And
Correct.
Think, right, okay, what's going on in there? Yeah.
Well, and our listeners will be bored because I've said this so many times before, but where we live here in Melbourne, we've got about 15 model shops within an hour and a half drive of where we are. And
really?
That's not counting the Games Workshop ones and the fantasy model shop ones.
Yeah, we're very well served.
We're very well served.
Yeah.
That's amazing because we've got. I mean, in London, there used to be a really big hobby store called Beatty's in the middle of town. So if you were in the city, there was somewhere you could go, and then there'd be these small sort of more traditional, old school hobby shops like that I remember from my childhood, and they all died out. They've all gone. And there's the odd sort of holdout. And they really go in them, they really feel like holdouts. They really feel like, Alamos. They're hanging on in there. And
sandbags around the front doors.
Yeah, exactly. And the rent's squeezing them out and all that. And it's kind of all really gone all mail order. And there's a massive shop called Hannant's in Lowestoft, which is a coastal town out in the east, right? And we were playing there, at a show there, and I said to my tour, we got there early. I said to my tour manager, "You know where I want to go?" And he goes, "No, I have no idea what you're talking about." So we go there, and the eye rolling and sucking of teeth that I got off him. Now, walking around this place, completely boggled, because there's so many companies since I last did it.
Oh yeah.
There's so much stuff. There's so much Russian stuff. I mean, it used to be a T-34 and a JS2, and that was about it. It was about everything you get in terms of Soviet army. Now you can get absolutely everything. I
know.
And a million T-34s and a million, and all the, obviously all the German variants and all that. It's just extraordinary. And companies that didn't, as far as I know, didn't exist, I wasn't aware of, didn't exist 35 years ago when I last did it. And amazing stuff like the Asuka stuff is so good.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, but you can even get tanks now that were never built, the paper panzers and everything, thanks to games like World of Tanks. Yeah. And that's helping push forward, and where model companies are going, oh, let's build this now. It never used to exist before.
You mentioned the Asuka. Asuka is known for like one kit, which is like their Sherman, right? Yeah. But then in the last 2 to 3 years, that many Shermans have come out from every manufacturer.
Yeah.
It's like, where did all these Shermans come from? Why do we need so many? Oh, I'll take them all. Although it's still pretty hard to just find an M4A3 like the British, the British Mark III Sherman, what we called the Mark III. That without the Firefly turret on, it's pretty hard to just find the long wheelbase vehicle as a kit. I think that's the one I've got. I've got an unfinished project, and I bought the resin interior and everything for it. So it's got like the Chrysler multibank engine in it.
Wow, awesome!
Yeah, I haven't finished it. It's still sitting in the box.
Yeah, that sounds very cool. I mean, but it is amazing how many, you can have every Sherman variant imaginable if you want, which is obviously part of my problem. That's what I've been drawn into, sucked into.
Yes, I feel your pain. I'm the same.
I wouldn't, Al. I wouldn't call it a problem. I'd be proud of the fact that you've got a huge stash you're starting to build up. It's a badge of honour. Wear it well.
Yes.
Hey, tell me, have you been sucked into going from those stupid rubber band tracks to individual links?
Well, some of did this comic come with? Yeah, the comic came with individual links. So the first kit I got into had these. And that wasn't a thing back in the day. And I thought, well, this is unparalleled hardship upon me. It's like a warning shot about getting back into this hobby across my bows to try and put me off.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, some of the kits, yes. And it's sort of become more standard in more recent builds, even in the mainstream manufacturers. I've noticed it seems to be a thing. But I ended up buying a lot of aftermarket rubber tracks, Sherman tracks, because it was driving me mad. I was thinking, I'm never going to finish this. And the thing I want in the end is to get, like I said earlier, is to get into the painting, to get past the building and the model as a complete thing rather than, oh dear, if I counted out 53 rather than 52 tracks, that's why it doesn't fit.
Yes.
Well,
and exactly how much bend should there be here and all that anyway.
Well, I mean, like the rubber tracks are what you should be aiming for with Shermans, right? Because they've got the tension tracks, right?
Yeah.
I know a lot of modelers go for the individual links now. They really hammer Dragon these days for it because they started cheaping out and going with the rubber tracks on all of their kits. Because they're not good for every tank, but they're good for Shermans, right?
Yeah.
I know the tracks on the Comet are particularly bad. They were like squared off, like where they meet together, they're squared off. So where they would be rounded, so that they just don't go together very well.
Right.
It's a pain in the ass.
Oh, I'm surprised you persisted with the hobby, Al, after you bought that as your first tank.
Well, I mean, it's a testament to hope over experience or something.
Yes.
I think I can't remember. I think the next thing I built was then the Cromwell, was the Tamiya Cromwell or the Centaur, which are kind of a pair, and that comes with a rubber track, and that those classic Tamiya 70s 80s kits, they basically assemble themselves. Is what it's what they're so nicely made.
Yeah.
I don't know how accurate they are, but they're really nicely made.
And
they're nice to make.
And a real low parts count.
Yeah.
And there's a new Crusader on the market too, isn't there?
Yeah, border models.
Yeah, border models with that Crusader tank, yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look that up.
That's the best. That's one of the coolest ones. It's the one with the really low down sports car look.
Yeah. Yes, with the weird sort of
Hexagonal.
polygonic turret.
Yeah,
this hexagonal weird shape. Yeah, yes, because there's an Italeri one of those which I made, which was also the second or third kit I made, and which Tamiya had rebadged and all that, and I didn't get along with that. I didn't get along with that kit at all. But, we fell out.
It's got a very abrasive personality.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, that border! I've just googled it. That border kit's really that's sweet. Yeah. Oh God.
Well, looks like someone's going to be spending some more money.
What are you doing to me, boys?
Just keeping you honest.
Have you built the new? Well, not new. But it's like a couple of years old now. The Tamiya Achilles.
Yes, I have.
How did that?
Well, that was when I'd got my eye in on a couple of and it was all the Tamiya to start with, but basically because it was nostalgic. That's what I used to make. It was like I'll make that kit again. I remember that being fun. So I got found a crocodile somewhere, which is of course discontinued. I managed to find one somewhere, the Churchill crocodile, which is such a great kit, such a cool mod. Idea to do that as the mod on the vehicle.
Yeah.
But that M10 is hard work, and I had that and the Archer in parallel with each other, And because of the open fighting compartment, you've got no choice. You've got to paint all these.
Yes.
Parts.
Bingo. There you have it. I was wondering how I was getting to that. Like once you actually have to paint the inside of things, things get pretty tricky pretty quickly. You know.
Hang on, I can't find it. Where is it?
Did you check the bin?
There it is. Yeah, this is suffered an accident, so it's 50 cal has lost its barrel. But this is when I first discovered that you could get these resin. When I discover resin parts, so you can get the sandbags and the wheels in and all that, and that, not have to scratch build that stuff. But the fighting compartment is hard tack.
Yeah.
When you just back new to it, and I don't airbrush either. It's all done by hand.
Oh, really? You haven't got an airbrush?
Yeah, because I never did, and I thought I'll never master this. I'll go with what I know, or what I remember doing, and go from there. So there's no airbrush at all. It's all done by hand.
Trust me, get an airbrush. It will blow your mind and completely rock your modelling world.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely. And really, once it doesn't take long to master an airbrush anyway.
No.
Right.
Point and shoot.
Yes, you should do it.
Yeah.
Like the time it takes to master an airbrush to a reasonable degree, like an average degree, is probably like 100,000ths of how much it takes to master brush work on figures.
Oh, right. Okay, now we're talking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like figures are so infinitely that much harder with a brush, right? Like an airbrush is really pretty simple. And like if you're doing like most of those tanks, they're all hosing them down with one color anyway. But it'll be consistent, nice and smooth across the whole lot. You don't have to worry about brush strokes.
Although you say that, but there is some footage. There is footage of some guys in 1944 going paintbrushes.
Oh, absolutely.
British tankers just covering it all up.
Yeah, and
that's very interesting. So what airbrush would you recommend to someone who's never airbrushed?
Oh my God,
A Wata?
A Wata, yeah, but that's sort of the expensive end of the range.
Yeah.
So an air compressor is going to cost you about 200 bucks Aussie. A good airbrush is going to be about a really top of the line is going to be about $300 to $500 Aussie.
Yeah, but you don't have to spend that much.
No, you don't.
No.
And then and you must have a painting booth as well to extract all the fumes and stuff.
No,
So-
do any of us have them?
Oh,
No,
I do.
look,
I do.
Oh, I don't.
Look,
Yeah.
if you're
fumes.
realistic, right, and you're not like putting all this like, you got to get the best of this and the best of that. It's like, no, you just need the compressor, and you need the airbrush, right?
So just an average airbrush.
Everything
to
else
start.
is luxury.
Yeah, my airbrush costs $42.
And
There you go.
and when it comes to airbrush brands and price, it's like if you want to be economical about it, if you're in North America, you go with Badger. If you're in Asia, you go with Iwata, and if you're in Europe, you go with Harder and Steenbeck, right? One of the lower tier ones.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for armor modelling, you don't need a top of the range airbrush.
No, that's true too.
Yeah.
You don't need something that's going to have a 0.1 needle.
No.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And you can get like $20 airbrushes off of AliExpress or some other eBay equivalent, right?
Yeah.
Just the no name Chinese manufactured ones.
Yeah. Rip-offs. I'd need to try it. If nothing else.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Before I spend a lot of money. I also my other how noisy is it? Because I do all this on the kitchen table. You see.
Oh shit.
And then get chased off the kitchen table.
We're not talking about like the kind of compressor you keep in your garage to pump up your tires.
Special model one.
No.
No, it's an airbrush compressor. It's pretty small. It's not going to be any louder than an egg beater or something like that, right?
Even quieter.
Even quieter.
Okay.
Yeah.
I reckon they purr more than...
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I have to think about that because I do really like the using paintbrushes, but it's slow.
Yeah.
Is the thing.
Well, this is the thing. It'll speed it up so you can get to the weathering, which sounds like is what you enjoy the most.
It is. Yeah.
I'm also thinking if you want to go quicker, you can just get the spray cans, the Tamiya spray cans.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. Well, I've done a bit of that for undercoating and stuff.
Yeah.
I have done some of that just to sort of speed things along on undercoating, and all the tracks all get a once over with that. anyway,
Yeah.
just to hurry it all along. But oh god, this is the problem though, right? James Holland, who I do the podcast with, we've agreed we're going to do a thing we're calling the Great British Kit Off.
Yeah.
Where we both have to make a kit and then come in and build a diorama in a day. Is the plan.
In a day?
Wow.
In a day. Well,
Wow.
that's an effort.
Well, yeah, but and we'll film it and it'll be hilarious, right?
All right. So
the second part I can guarantee. But so he's built a panther in the last week, right? It's just done it, and he didn't do it very seriously with his lad, because I was really into it at one point. He didn't do it very seriously with his lad, and he just got back into it. He's going, I cannot believe the stuff that exists now that didn't before, and he spent so much money just building the one panther. Like the kit was incidental to the cost.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
Well, you want to talk about kit costs? Ian here is renowned because Ian and I are both shipbuilders, and Ian bought a Japanese aircraft carrier.
Yes, I did.
I'll let you tell the story because it's hilarious.
I bought the Shikaku in 1 to 350 scale and decided to deck it out as December 7th, 41.
Lovely.
I started off with I think it cost me about 150 Australian.
Yeah.
And by the time I finished building it, I'd spent over $1,200.
Jesus Christ. Well, and then what's your time worth? On top of that.
Yeah, well, that was it. I ran at a loss for this from the beginning to the end.
But that's the thing with aftermarket stuff. I mean, you can buy the kit, but it's all the aftermarket stuff, which, just to buy some aftermarket tracks, the Fruy ones, the metal ones, I mean, they're the same price as the actual damn kit.
Sometimes more expensive.
Yeah.
Like, for myself,
Yeah.
the kit is the cheapest part. It's the aftermarket which
Yeah.
always snowballs and goes. Like my current project, the Marauder, I'm building the old 1978 monogram Marauder kit in 48 scale.
Yeah.
And you can pick that up at swap meet for about $20, $30 Australian.
Yeah.
And I think I must have already spent about 200 plus on aftermarket.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bloody hell.
And then there's like the the resin conversion kits where you turn like a regular Sherman into like some specific subvariant, Those get expensive very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing I have been flirting with, because I wouldn't mind a DD tank. Again, because it's all these Sherman variants. But to get
I know the one you're talking about, and I want that thing.
Yeah.
But the other alternative, of course, is to buy a 3D printer.
Yes.
And get into making and printing the parts yourself.
Yeah.
That's another hobby almost.
It is, isn't it? Because a friend of mine, lives in France, and we saw him in the summer because we had a window we could actually escape the country for about 2 weeks, and they shut us back down again, and rightly so. But and he goes, I've got a 3D printer. It's amazing, and he brought me this thing he'd printed, like a picture of me, taken a picture off the internet and printed it. And I said, well, that's amazing. You can print anything like that. He said, yeah. So we found someone had done the bulldozer kit that they used to stick on a Sherman that the Americans had as a just chuck on the front of a Sherman kit. So he printed me that, brought it round. There it is. Bonk, like that. And then I get into thinking, this is cool. And because he just Googled World of Free Stuff or whatever the site's called.
Yeah.
And someone's made that. Someone's bothered to measure it up. And all he has to do is print it. He prints it out of his corn syrup or whatever you use to print 3D stuff out if you want, whatever material you use.
Yep.
And there it is. And I haven't fitted it yet to the Easy 8 because the Easy 8 I need to strip that back down and start again with that kit. And then I'll put the bulldozer on it. But it was amazing. And I was thinking, well, maybe this is the way to go.
But then why go to all the hassle of buying and doing it when you got a mate like that? You can just tap on the shoulder and say, hey, can you print this off for me?
Well, that's quite true. But he lives in France. So there'd be the like waiting for it to come and all that. And the thrill of going, you know what, I could do a sandbag that fitted in there would be really brilliant. And rather than obviously just mould it out of putty or clay, I'd leave the machine overnight to go and make me one.
Well, difficulties in the actual designing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
It's easy enough if you can
absolutely.
grab it off some online library, but if you want to go off-road, you really need to have the skills to
you've got to learn
do it yourself. And that's not that easy.
No.
I mean, it's like you can get simple stuff done, like boxes and, like hose fittings and things like that by yourself, probably without too much effort. But when you start getting into like compound curves and all that sort of stuff, it just gets infinitely more difficult, right?
Yeah, I know, but it was just this miracle of this bloke turning up the next evening with this bulldozer done. You're like, what?
We need to make friends with someone that's got a 3D printer.
Well, we were talking about sort of all going partners, and we did that for our
silhouette cutter.
Our silhouette cutter. So,
which is a handy thing, which means no more decals.
Yeah, yeah.
What we're talking? Do you know about the silhouette cutters?
No.
Okay, so basically, for people who tend to build more planes than just tanks, you got all the sort of the decals that you would put on, but instead of that, if you want to go off-road and no one makes the decals for it, your best bet is to paint them on, right? So you have this machine and you just design up the two-dimensional artwork and then it'll cut it, right? And you just need to feed essentially like adhesive-backed masks.
Yeah.
And they'll just cut it all out for you and you just stick them on, airbrush it, and then peel it off, and that's it.
Right, because I bought some transfer paint, decal paper.
Yep.
You print on, then you seal with gloss varnish, and then you or matte varnish, and then you apply.
Yes.
But I've just not got around to it yet because I wanted it for patches for some figures like unit patch.
Yep.
I couldn't successfully shrink them small enough down to scale.
Yeah.
To come up with something meaningful to then print. So I gave up and I haven't got around to it yet. And also there are so many decals out there. There's so much stuff you can get your hands on.
Yes, there is.
Basically anything that's been photographed in the Second World War, you can get a decal to go on an AFV if you want it. Yep. It's like that isn't an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Too true. Plus you got Archer. Yeah, Archer. They do those really nice rub-on decals.
Yep.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, it's all amazing. His stuff's amazing. Their stuff's absolutely fantastic, and it's awesome. And none of that existed. And you'd think, well, what if I want to do 2 Bren carriers? What do I do now?
Yeah, how do you do the second number? Yeah.
The second number, and the. Do I just switch a 2 and a 3 around? What do I do?
Well, so like everything's got its limitations, and like cutting masks on a silhouette machine, you can only go so small, right? Whereas printing decals, you can go really small. But on the other hand, if you print your own decals, you can't do white because printers don't print in white. But then you have to think like like on Sherman's, how you got like the yellow number codes.
Yeah.
Numbers, yeah.
So you know how those things were actually sprayed on, and you'll often see like the overspray from where they've put the stencil up against the tank and then sprayed it with yellow. Yeah. So you can do that with an airbrush and a mask that you can't do with a decal.
Or by hand.
You need an airbrush.
Maybe. I mean, I always try and all my markings, they all end up smothered in mud and grit and filth and grime anyway. So they're never
anything.
Pristine.
You get far enough into the hobby that you start looking at all these things. You're like, I'll tackle that down the road, and then you end up down the road, and you're like, I want to do that stuff.
Yeah. No, it's I mean, it is amazing though. The like you say though, when we were what we were talking about much earlier on is that when you look at the vehicle, you see the engineering, and then you go and see it in real life, and you get an idea of how far the step up is to where like on a tank, how far you've got to pull yourself up to get up onto the vehicle, to get into the vehicle. You start seeing all that if you go to a museum and see these things right in front of you, and the brilliant things of the Sherman, those where they were designed to be hooked, how you'd pull the turret off, how you'd move it on and off a ship when it was being shipped over, not an LCT, but like when they were freighted over.
Yeah.
All those things in the design. All the and again, this whole thing with Allied armor is every single British, American, Canadian tank had to arrive in a ship. All the German stuff would drive, and Russian stuff would drive out the factory and onto wherever it was going.
Onto a flatbed train.
Onto a flatbed train or whatever. Whereas all the Allied stuff had to at some point cross an ocean.
Yep.
So there's all that built into making them work. And when you see the thing in front of you, a lot of the things that are apparent on a Sherman, you go, oh, right, well, that's what that's for. I get it now. I understand what that is. And then you think about what the wear and tear on it would be, and where the paint would have come away, and you get the steel under it, or the primer, or the rust, and all that. And that's so sexy.
Yeah,
it is. It is.
That aspect of it.
And perhaps that's one of the drawbacks of going to the museum, is that all their tanks are in pristine condition. So you have to actually go to one of those museums where it actually lets you go past the velvet rope to actually touch and look at it, so you can get that understanding, like you were saying there, Al, where the feet went, where they help put their hands on to lift themselves on, to understand where the rubbing and wearing needs to be.
And then you got field modifications.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing with. I mean, last time we went to Bovington, we went on their Tiger Day with 131, and the curator there, David Willey's an amazing man. I mean, he literally knows every nut and bolt of that Tiger tank. It's extraordinary, and also the further they get into the story of the capture of that vehicle, the further away what happened gets. The more detail they look for, the vaguer it becomes, because there were 2 encounters with Tigers that day, and there's a muddle as to which one is 131 and which one was just knocked out. So which one the British actually took back to the UK and then displayed on horse guards and all that sort of stuff, right? So there's proper confusion, and because one unit took it out with a 6-pounder, and the other unit said they took it out with their Churchill, which had a 6-pounder. There is simply no way of knowing from the damage to the vehicle which outfit it was that would have done it, because you can fit a 6-pounder round in the damage under the cupola. It fits perfectly, the circumference of the thing. Yep. So they don't know. And the photos of it, where it was found and recovered by the REME, right, don't match the grid reference that's given on the report. If you stand there, the hills behind it are wrong, right? So what's going on? It's all very odd. And then the very first thing they do with it, they get it running and they film it so they can do silhouette intel on it, so they can do some tech int on it and get a grip of what it looks like. Its wheel shape, the shape of the turret, and all that sort of stuff, so that they can immediately get out into the field. Look out for this. This is what it is. You're going to have to get really close to it to destroy it. I'm sorry about that. And all that sort of stuff. So there's a modification on 131 that went onto all the model kits, because everyone thought that was standard early production Tiger. And it's just that heavy Panzer battalion, where obviously the boss had said, I want you to put a footstep at the front because it's too awkward getting on and off quickly. So there's a mod on that tank that went into lore, L-O-R-E, lore, about that tank, that's just actually from that heavy
unit,
Panzer. Yeah, heavy Panzer company. It's just, that's also interesting. And then but it's in pristine condition, like you say. But then the other thing they've got at Bovington that's quite interesting is the Fury tank, which is a late Sherman, the Easy 8 suspension, but it's been done for movies, right? So there's some things they welded on to look like real things, and there's some things that are real things that they can take off. There's things on it that are made to look like steel but are wood. Because they wanted them detachable, so they could fit. There's the GoPro points where they fit a load of, because a lot of the time they were running it, they had a thing that just filming the running gear all the time. Yeah, so they could cut into high def shots of running gear and all sorts of stuff. So a lot of the weathering on that, it looks fantastic, but it's all art department. It's all it's all completely phony, right? So you've got this weird contrast of pristine museum vehicles and then a fake weathered, war battered vehicle. And so you go there as like someone trying to figure out what these vehicles would have looked like, and you get 2 very, very contrasting impressions.
Yep.
The Fury tank it looks so sweet. It looks so good, and all the story with the Tiger in Fury is that they tarmacked a field basically, and so that the 131 could drive up the field without risking its running gear, without risking a gear.
Tarmacked a field. Wow.
Yeah, tarmacked a field, and they laid AstroTurf over it, so it could drive up and down without ever bogging down and getting stuck. Because it's just too precious, that tank.
Yeah.
It's literally priceless. But the museum, obviously they made a shitload of money out of hiring it out to the movie, but under all these very strict conditions. And they've got a problem with rotating the turret because the turret is no longer perfectly circular from the damage done to it in 1943.
Right.
That it's slightly off. So they prefer not to rotate it. If they can possibly avoid it, which is really interesting, because they have to service the engine, to get the engine properly. They have to turn it round, and so on. But I mean, it's just so interesting when you get the vehicle in front of you and you look at the thing, and then also how their cultural expressions of the cultures that produced them.
Yeah,
these vehicles. The German ones are all like overcomplicated, and the Tiger sits in this weird thing where they know they can't make lots of cheap tanks, so they think, fuck it, we'll make something really really expensive and cutting edge. But they can't. But they're all basically, each one is handmade essentially. There are no two Tiger parts that fit from one tank to another, because they're all made workshop style, not on a production line.
And so that's a war-winning strategy, isn't it?
Yeah, that's gonna work when you went up against the three biggest industrial economies in the world. Each of which is much larger than yours.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, we got some great museums out here. So next time you're down this part of the world, let us know and we'll take you. There's Puckapunyal Army Museum, which is just absolutely brilliant.
What about the one in Cairns?
Cairns, if you're ever up in Queensland. The Australian Arm and Artillery. Some mega millionaire has a passion for tanks, so he opened up his own museum up in Cairns in North Australia.
Amazing.
And it's got
their reception desk is made out of the hull of a Matilda, I believe, isn't it?
Yeah, and they've just got a running Panzer IV.
Yeah. Panzer IV running.
Oh, wow.
Panther running a Stug.
They're building a Tiger at the moment. So.
Really?
Yeah. It's got a lot.
Yeah, it's a serious.
It's a lot.
It's a serious museum.
Well, we were actually quite blessed here a few years ago.
Yeah.
Not far, probably 5-10 minute drive from here. There was a guy who had his own little private museum.
Yeah,
fair enough. The guy was a complete crackpot, but he had original, and they were in original condition. Like he had that little Japanese tank.
Yeah, the little Type 89.
Really?
Yeah, and it was still original from when they found it in Borneo, I think it was, or somewhere.
Wow.
I can't remember exactly.
Well,
it couldn't be opened though because the inside's filled with asbestos.
Yes, but it still had the graffiti. It still had the graffiti on the side from the Australian soldiers.
Yeah, amazing.
Really?
Yeah,
amazing. Well, I mean, here's a strange thing, because a long time ago I was for a while married to one of your compatriots, right? And her grand, yeah. I mean, we're out of that situation now.
Say no more.
Damn
however,
colonists.
Her grandfather, right, was an eccentric character who lived in Bendigo, and he built a 1-to-1 Spitfire that stuck in his.
Good effort.
Man's got to have a hobby.
He's got Calvert Hargraves, and he built a 1-to-1 Mark 8 that was just, and it from scrap. So it's not like he got any Spitfire bits. It's not like I'm one of the there was no Spitfire in it, but he built this thing, and he used to sit on the paddock at the front of his place, but he'd left his wife. Right, he'd left Gran, so Gran lived in this house with this Spitfire on the porch, basically. He had his hobby. He's a little eccentric. He's like, yeah, fuck yeah. But that's taking it to an extreme to build a 1-to-1. Because James May, the TV presenter, he he built a 1-to-1 Spitfire that took RAF Cosford,
which was based off the old Airfix kit.
That's right, and it's sort of droopy because it's plastic. It doesn't.
Yeah, I remember watching the documentary on that. It was quite funny because they actually CGI'd James May himself as the pilot.
That's right. Printed his face.
Which was really weird.
Okay, we got 12 days before Christmas, so we're recording this on the 12th of December, and actually we'll publish it today. So, Al, do you reckon there's any sort of good recommendations that you've got for people who are looking for a book for Christmas?
Well, I mean, funny you should say that. Hold on 1 second. I don't know how you like your history, but I've written a book this year in lockdown, which I don't know how well advised it is to write a book during a shut down quarantine situation, because you got no stimulus. Yeah. And also you got the internet, so you think, I might look at something else instead. But I've written a book called The Last 100 Years, Give or Take, and All That. Subtitle: A Misremembered Journey Through the 20th Century, and it's about it. There's a very famous parody history book from a long time ago here in the UK called 1066 and All That, which totally sends up how history used to be taught at school, which is King John's a bad king, William the Conqueror was a bastard, and like Henry VIII and the Six Wives, and it's all like it's confused and remembered wrong. So they always used to get Henry VIII's wives in the wrong order and all that sort of thing. And I really love history. I grew up in a house that was obsessed with it. We would go to Arnhem for our Easter holidays rather than anywhere else. We didn't go to the football. We'd be talking about mosquitoes, me and my dad. We'd be off to Duxford or whatever. So I grew up with lots of history around me. And this book is basically, I didn't try and write another 1066 and All That, because there's no point trying to ape their style, because you'll only fail and you'll look like you're ripping them off. So it's me like saying, right, and one of my daughters, she's 17, she's just done what we call a GCSE, so the exams you do when you're 16, in history. So I got her history notes and looked at how they've been taught the Nazis, and then sort of, and in particular, the start of the First World War, and thought, right, well, I'll write a kind of funny version of this, and so it's the last 100 years, although it's the world. I think it's the world's first ever history book to at the start say this history book is biased. I admit it. And if there's anything in it that I've missed out, it's because I'm just not interested in it. I think it's boring. Or my bias precludes me from having anything to say about it. Right. So it's extremely Anglo-centric, but it says it is. It doesn't go, it doesn't make no bones about it. So I'm sort of clear conscience, but it's a funny book. But I mean, one of the things that I ended up doing, it's quite, I don't know what it's like in your popular culture in Australia in this relation, in regard to this, but we are still very much obsessed with the Second World War in this country. It colours all of our political debate. It basically interferes with absolutely fucking everything, right? Yep. And our post-war settlement, the welfare state, the health service, is still the thing that dictates 3/4 of our argument, and then the other quarter is dictated by what on earth do we do about our near neighbours, right? And which has very much led to Brexit. Brexit is very much right this week, right now, while we're trying to find a way out of the EU without totally trashing our economy. The people who want to leave are couching it in terms of the Second World War. There was a politician today who tweeted, these Europeans should show us the gratitude for saving them. Saving their asses and giving them the freedoms, blah, blah, blah. And you think, mate, right, wasn't me, wasn't you.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a handful of those people left, maybe, and they might well have a different attitude to you, which is that, you got to, even if you regard them as your enemies, you've got to keep them closer than your friends.
It's amazing. I mean, you say that World War II has so much influenced Australian politics and policy. I read a fantastic book about when Japan was sort of moving south, and Australia was screaming to have its divisions brought back from the Middle East, and Churchill's fighting tooth and nail, saying, "Oh no, we'll hold it," and we weren't getting the Spitfires that we needed and all this sort of stuff. And that's what caused a pivot for us in our foreign relations to go to the US.
You're right, and the fall of Singapore, where you're like, all right, well,
don't get me started on the fall of Singapore.
Exactly. But no one. But the thing is, you can't get people here started on the fall of Singapore. They're so hung up on Dunkirk, Miracle of Dunkirk, Battle of Britain, and in fact, if you're French, the Miracle of Dunkirk does look an awful lot like us fucking off.
Exactly.
And maybe that's what that's what they're reminded of, rather than us defending them saving them.
Yeah.
Saving them for a better future.
Yeah, they look at it. They look at a point is, look, we were in trouble and you guys fucked off and left us to deal with it.
And don't forget what happened to the French Navy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Mers el-Kabir, which again people do not know about.
No.
In standard British discourse, people do not know about Mers el-Kabir, and if they did, they might go, "Ooh, crikey, that's a bit embarrassing."
It's a bit harsh.
It's a little harsh, yeah. But the point. So one of the things I tried to do in the book, and it's sort of. Very much in the wake of doing the podcast with James, is try and retell some of the. I mean, it's a funny book, but I try and retell some of the way the Second World War is looked at from a British perspective. Try and reboot. The Battle of Britain, after all, if you're not going to pick a side in the Battle of Britain, right? What happens is the Luftwaffe are so surprised by the Battle of France working out the way it does that they are not, and they're not at all geared to what they're then asked to do, which is achieve air supremacy over the UK for a possible invasion that probably won't happen because half the Kriegsmarines at the bottom of the ocean in Norway anyway, right?
Yes.
So they're given something they're not suited to do that probably won't be capitalised on anyway, and they're fed into an air defence system that has been built to deal with this exact thing.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the story of the Battle of Britain. Is the RAF right? Bring it on. This is what we're designed for. Fighter command has been designed to deal with this. And also the opposition, they have no idea what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing next. Their intelligence is terrible. They can't pick the targets. They bomb. There's this traditional story here that, they bombed the airfields and nearly brought the RAF to its knees. It simply isn't true. That did not happen. They couldn't pick the fighter stations. They didn't know which ones were which. They'd sometimes bomb bomber stations, which was not going to win them air supremacy.
And how can you bomb a grass airfield and shut it down? It's a grass airfield. Yeah. Hello.
There we are. And there's trucks hidden nearby full of dirt that will fill those holes in, and that'll be the end of that. Right. Yeah, exactly. Precisely. But people do not want to talk about it. It's the few, and it's us pluckily holding on. Poor little old lonely Britain, whereas in fact, Britain with this enormous empire, come on. You can't be proud of us having had an empire and then pretend it didn't exist when push came to shove. At the crunch moment where it helped us out. Yeah. But anyway, so there's a bit of that in the book. But I'll try and get to the point I was trying to make. But I got to the establishment of the Third Reich, and I really looked at my daughter's notes. I looked at Willow's notes, right? And I wrote this stuff, and you're right, trying to write like a kind of brief trot through Hitler's rise to power, how everyone gets sort of caught wrong foot. He wrong foots everyone. He ends up in charge, Reichstag fire, enabling act, and then the slide into not just war, but like the internal repression that then spills over. Blah 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 blah. And I'd written this stuff, and I always end up feeling dirty if I have to read those ideas too much. I read that stuff. I end up feeling grubby. Like, God, have we got to go over this again? Fuck, right. So, and it was when I was in France, and I wrote like 20,000 words of this stuff. And it was starting to take the book over, starting to dominate the book. So I wrote to my editor, and I said, you can either have this, right? Right? You can either have these 20,000 words, or you can have this. And I'll read it to you because I think this gives you a flavour of the book. Here we go. This chapter's called Hitler, 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 right? And it goes like this. So now we come to 1930s Germany, the rise of the Nazis and all that. Not sure there's a lot I can add, given the sheer amount of published on this topic, but here goes. Hitler, 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 Weimar, Hitler, 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 hyperinflation, money in wheelbarrows, Hitler, Hitler, Hitler. It goes on and like that for 1.5 pages, and ends with Hitler, Chamberlain, Munich, Stalin, Poland, Hitler, 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 World War II. And there's a footnote on that page that says Hitler, Hitler. Right? So, because otherwise, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna write?
Rehash something that's been written about 1,000 times before.
Yeah,
exactly. And none of it's very funny.
No, absolutely.
You know, it's my remit after all. So yeah, the last 100 years and all, give or take and all that is out now. So if anyone's looking for and I'm sure it's available on Kindle, and there'll be some sort of electronic version of it. Once we've shut our trading with the rest of the world down to show them all who's boss. Oh God!
And of course,
they're saying we're going to have an Australian deal with the EU. That's what the government is saying. They're going to have an Australian deal with the EU. Yeah, Australia doesn't have a deal with the EU.
Oh, we're getting kicked at the moment by China. They're slapping tariffs on the left, right, and centre. They're
being bully boys.
They're wolf diplomacy. So it's interesting world at the moment.
Yeah, I think we should team up with Great Britain and Canada.
Yeah, we'll go back to the old empire. Bring the Commonwealth back up to foremost and
turn the world pink.
I mean, you know,
turn the world pink again.
I've heard worse ideas.
And of course, if our listeners want to catch up with you, you've got a funny little podcast you do with one of your friends, James Holland. What's that podcast happen to be called?
It's called We Have Ways of Making You Talk, and it is James and I. And James is, you know, I'm into the Second World War. That's not quite the right way of putting it. I'm fascinated by it, but he actually is he's a historian. He knows about it. You can say, what was Operation Martlet? And he'll tell you who everyone who was involved in it and how long it lasted and what the aim was and whether it worked. You know, he's quite extraordinary. And we started, this all came about from, he has a history festival called the Chalk Valley History Festival in this really beautiful green valley where he lives in the English countryside. And he does a comedy night and he gets British comedy faces to do it. And he kept bothering me about doing it. I couldn't do it one year. And I had to pull out quite late. So I said, let me buy you lunch as a sorry. And we just became friends. And basically, every time he was in London, he said, can we just sit in a pub for the afternoon and talk about the war? Because that's all I really want to that's all I really want to do. And I'm like, well, you know, bingo, you know, that sounds pretty good. So we started doing that. And then our producer was looking for podcast subjects, and he's fascinated by the Second World War. And what he's done is these pairings where he has someone who's interested and someone who's an expert. So he did a thing with this guy. There's a guy called Gary Lineker, who's a very famous footballer here. You know, won the Golden Boot in the World Cup and all that, and the Soccer World Cup. And he did a podcast with him and a bloke who's a football writer. So they, you know, one would say what it's actually like playing football, and the other would go, well, this is what it's like being a fan. So that was his pairing. And he had this guy, Stephen Fry, with Stuart Broad, the cricketer, so they'd talk about cricket. Yeah. So he got the expert and the enthusiast. So he put us together, me and Jim, and it's been an extraordinary thing to do, because I feel like I'm doing a master's degree in the Second World War. We've had people all over the world adding stuff in, which forces you to think, because with this one guy on Twitter, a guy calls himself Ernest Malley. And I know who Ernest Malley was and all that, right? And he is endlessly sending us stuff about Asia Pacific, and endlessly sending us stuff about Australian operations and stuff we just didn't know about, or if we did, it was barely on our radar. And also the politics around it and what happens with MacArthur edging Australia out and all that sort of stuff, which is really, really interesting, because, you know, you say Australia turns to the US, but then the US rewards Australia by basically demoting it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's really
that was one of the main
fascinating.
reasons we had the mutiny in the Air Force.
Yeah, exactly. Which people don't know about here. Yeah. So the podcast, all that stuff, and you know, we've also really got into you know, there's that amazing book called Hell to Pay about the possible invasion of Japan, about the planned invasion of Japan,
Operation Olympic. Yeah.
That's it, Olympic and downfall and all that, and you know, because it's the next phase, and what the casualty estimates actually are, and how a lot of people have said that there weren't heavy casualty estimates, but you've got these old soldiers saying, well, these old Marines going, well, why was I told we were going to lose 500,000 people then if that's not true?
And you just have to look at what happened at Okinawa and Saipan just to get an idea of what the casualties would have been.
It's all to do with Okinawa. Yeah,
Yep.
It's all to do with Okinawa. Yeah, and we've got into that, which then once you start thinking about that, you realise so much history and so much of the history of the Second World War is there's a whole load of stuff that goes unsaid, right? So I've read all sorts of books that really lay into Eisenhower and pay him out for not going to Berlin in 1945. But actually, the unsaid thing in Western Europe, especially among the American commander, because they don't want the British involved in the invasion of Japan. There are no Brits involved. It's really interesting. They're training a Canadian division as American soldiers with American kit, but they don't want the British involved at all. They're not. MacArthur is not interested, which is quite interesting. Coalition warfare. Anyway, but what's unsaid at SHAEF is we have to wrap this up as quickly as possible with as few casualties as possible because the American army have to go to Japan, and that's what Eisenhower's doing. Bradley stops getting replacements in April of 1945. They just stop sending them to him because they can't afford them because they need them for Japan.
Yeah,
and that would never have occurred to me as a thing in the background. And James is just as much saying he's guilty of only looking in the one direction. And the sheer global scale of it is the thing I'm really sort of getting the juice of with this podcast. And then we've done other stuff. So we've done a load of audio books. So we found a load of out of print stuff, and I've been reading it because I'm sat in my home studio doing nothing. I had a stand up tour of the UK, that was due to start March the 21st, which is the day after we locked down here. So all my work's gone. So we've been doing audio books and mainly out of print stuff and memoirs and all this sort of stuff to try and get really get to grips with the sort of first hand accounts as well as the sort of grand strategy and then the Firefly, which we like to shit on about. Well, and all that sort of stuff.
You spoke about the Brits sort of being locked out of the Pacific. Go back and have a look at and read about the British Fleet Air Arm and their contribution towards the in 45 onwards. The logistical tail going from the UK down to Australia and then all the way back up the top of the world again in the Pacific was just it's beggars belief.
It's absolutely incredible, isn't it? And I mean, the American effort in the Pacific is astonishing, but they've at least got a coast tangential to it.
Yeah.
It's a long way away. But they've at least got one. But the Royal Navy, the stuff they're pulling off, and like you say, that tail is quite amazing. And also, you can see also why immediately post-war, the British Empire falls apart completely.
Yeah.
Because it's broke. And Australia's been rolled by the Brits. The New Zealand's thinking none of this is anything to do with us anyway, and our army mutinied. Right? The Canadians are thinking none of this is anything to do with us, and our army mutinied. I mean, all these allied mutinies that no one knows about are really interesting.
That's right. I mean, look at the poor Canadians in Hong Kong. Got dumped there about 3 days before Japan started the war. Oh my God! Anyway.
I mean, anyway, but the podcast it's lots of fun and on it. I mean, it's sort of the wrong way around for you, but we do a live cast on a Thursday night as well, where we do this. We sit and talk to each other on screens, and people can watch, and they punt their questions in. And my dad's got involved as well because my dad, like I said, brought me out to be interested in history, and he's really researched what happened to my mother's father because my mother's father was killed outside Dunkirk in 1940. In a holding action, and he was a territorial soldier. He wasn't a professional soldier. He was a banker, and ended up in a battalion with 2 professional soldiers in the whole thing, and they were what. But essentially, that battalion was completely destroyed. But my dad's researched that, so we've had him on a couple of times to talk, and. So it's, and with other historians, and we've just spoken to a really interesting American historian about the Wehrmacht's involvement in the Holocaust in Belarus, which is totally hair-raising and also like flips all sorts of ideas on their heads about what happened. That it's not just steely evil Nazis. it's also eager NCOs going, all right, boss, I'll get that done for you.
Yes. Trying to climb the promotional ladder.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Anyway, but so the podcast, we chew the cud. I mean, you said you listened to it, David. So
yeah,
but we chew the cud.
Well, both Robert and myself, we're aficionados of it. I think we've been living it since first episode, and in fact, it was Robert who put me onto it, and he said, "Hey, you got to listen to this one."
Well,
so
Chris put me on.
Well, what do you want us to just tell us what you want us to talk about, and we'll go away and find out about it and get into it, because the big part is the feedback loop from the listener that makes it really exciting.
Well, I want you to talk about our podcast on there. Al, next time you're down in Australia, you've got to touch base with us. We'll look after you and take you to some classic and museums, and it's been really...
And it's probably a good hobby shop run too.
Oh, yeah, definitely a good hobby shop run.
Yeah, but taking a finished kit back my luggage is a bit stupid.
Yeah.
Thanks
very much for being on the show, mate. Really appreciate it.
A total pleasure. Thanks. It's nice to... I get back into this hobby and you think, I'm a grown man. Am I, what's going on here? And you all look like grown men, so I'm in good company.
You are.
We're old men, maybe not grown.
Yeah.
That's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, fellas.
No worries.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Well, wasn't it a fantastic expletive-ridden interview with Al?
Mate, what a legend. The guy's a legend, mate. If we ever get to England, I'm definitely going to have a beer with that guy.
I can't wait till he comes out to Australia, because no doubt he'll tour out here.
Oh, yeah. We'll have to have some beers with him, mate, definitely.
Hey, we'll get him on the show with a couple. We'll do it at night, and we can drink beers.
Sounds like a plan.
That'll be a real scream.
Yeah, that'll be a great night. Great night. Get Michelle to cook him up a good Aussie dinner and have a great night with him. Yeah,
it would be.
Especially someone with his knowledge too.
Oh,
yeah, and so quick off the mark and witty. Yeah, brilliant.
Well, you can see why he's ranked as one of the best stand-up comedians.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And so passionate about
armour, and now modelling
and World War II in general.
Yeah. That was fantastic.
Just the enthusiasm just comes right off him.
And it makes all of us enthusiastic too. Yeah, it's very what's it? The word addictive, sort of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Does that make you want to build something British?
I do have British subjects.
Yeah.
I've got a 35th scale. I've got two Matildas from Tamea, the two new Matildas. I've got the British one and I've got the Russian one, which is going to be turned into an Australian one. I've got the Australian conversion for it. I've got the Mung Rolls-Royce armoured car.
Oh, yeah.
The 1920 version with the big fat wheels, which I reckon looks so mean. And
you got the Scammell now?
And I now have the Scammell SV2 or S2V, whatever it is, the recovery
something like
vehicle.
That.
Yeah.
Those letters and numbers are involved.
Yeah, but that's a mean looking thing. And as I said to Julian last episode, I was tempted to Mad Max it, but now it's no, I'll keep it traditional.
Good.
Because you look at the shape of it and the chunkiness of it, and it just screams, this is post-apocalyptic.
Well, let's come up towards the end of the show. So our next episode will be our 100th episode.
Whoa, 100
wow.
and counting.
What are you doing? What's special?
Well, what's special is we've got some giveaways. Goodman Heavy Model Industries have announced that
Goodman Heavy Model Industries.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. Anthony gets a bit of a chuckle out of it when I say that.
That's pretty cool, mate.
He's got some of his stuff that he's going to be providing to us for giveaways.
Fantastic.
And also we're going to be doing some special episodes, which we will be dropping about once a week after we've done our 100th.
Once a week.
So we'll have about 1, 2, 3, 4 special episodes, which we'll drop one a week. Right. So that'll be as a thank you to our audience.
Yeah, catching up with old friends and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. So it should be uber cool.
Yes, and a big thanks to everyone who's been listening to us and supporting us for all this time.
Absolutely.
It's been a great journey so far, and we're hoping to continue doing it for many years to come.
Well, I'm hoping we are going to be.
I'm thanking you. You're welcome.
Well, no worries, buddy.
All right, so let's move to our sign-off. Let's start with you, Ian.
Oh, we all know who's your friend. And who's your friend, Dave?
Photo Edge. Now, Robert, you got a sign-off.
I have. I think you'll like this.
I will.
Join your local model club.
That's a good one, yeah.
Join your local model club.
Why not? Julian?
I've had 2 coffees today, and I don't intend to stop.
Oh.
So everyone should just go ahead and get another coffee.
Here's
Be
something for
wired
you.
like Julian.
It is what it is.
Oh.
Yeah, it is what it is.
So we had this episode. We had to get up quite early in the morning for it.
Well, for Julian, it's quite
For
early.
Julian, it's quite early.
For me, it was a big sleep in.
What time did you get up, Julian?
This is 7 a.m.
I got up at 6.
Geez, I normally wake up at 4.
Julian normally goes to bed at 7 in the morning.
Yes.
The way this conversation is going, someone's going to say, "Oh, I got up yesterday, today." You know, I got up last week.
All right, Dave, your turn. Sign off.
I don't have a sign off. I never have.
No, you
Yeah,
don't.
you were saying about other people.
Isn't
might
that
have a
fairly
sign-off.
convenient?
Yeah,
Well,
no,
you
no.
know,
Slacker.
I'm the
The gimp.
Is this the classic case of the person who operates the camera so they never have to be in front of it?
Well, you wouldn't want to see me in front of a camera.
Yeah, we've done.
I've
yes.
got a face for
Yeah,
radio.
but I have to see it every time I come over here, Dan.
Bang.
Yeah,
I've been coming here for 100 episodes worth, almost.
you better check what's in your breakfast next week, sunshine. All right, guys, we'll be back in a fortnight. See you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Well, that was a cracker of an episode, and we hope that you enjoyed it as much as we did. In the meantime, as modelers, we are now spoilt for choice when it comes to podcasts about our lovely hobby. First of all, you have the New Kids on the Block, Just Making Conversation with Malcolm and James. And in their latest episode, they're talking about paints. Our good friends from Plastic Model Mojo with Mike and Dave are discussing dioramas and vignettes. Scale Model Podcast with Stuart, Jeff and Terry. Well, they're just shooting the breeze in this latest episode, and it's a wide-ranging discussion as well. And, of course, don't forget the Plastic Posse Podcast. The boys are joined by Matt Madugal, a.k.a. Doogs Models, and it makes for a great episode. You're listening to On the Bench. My name's Dave, and I'll be back with you next episode. Thanks for listening.